On a stormy night, Deculan stands in the rain, reaching out with determination. A mystical force begins to tear through the downpour, as if he's defying the fate that has been written for him. The path ahead is clear. He will not accept the destiny that was set. In the next moment, a fierce battle unfolds. A figure, bloodied and injured, continues to fight, despite the pain. With each cough, the resolve to push forward grows stronger. The sword-wielding character refuses to succumb to their injuries, driven by an unyielding will. As the confrontation intensifies, they lock eyes with their opponent, their determination unwavering despite the visible bloodstains. But there's more than just physical injury at play here. There's an emotional battle too, as the weight of betrayal or loss looms over them. The next scene shifts to a digital interface, showing the nullification of engagement condition. The only way to proceed is to eliminate Deculan. This shift signifies a major turning point, as the choice to end the engagement becomes a final, irrevocable decision. Finally, Kim Woo-jin, the game developer behind the scenes, sighs in relief. After a long night of overtime, the bug is finally fixed, but as the screen fades, the sense of impending doom remains. There's still much left unresolved. In a development studio, Kim Woo-jin, a game developer, reflects on the game's progress as he analyzes the results. The game, where fate plays a central role, has been evolving based on player interactions. But one character stands out, Deculan. This villainous character has become more significant than originally planned, growing beyond the script to challenge the fate assigned to him. The next scene shifts to Deculan's character in the game, now entrenched in a conflict that involves forces both within and beyond the game's boundaries. He appears on a throne, a leader surrounded by power, and yet there is an unsettling tension as his fate is twisted, making him question his role. Meanwhile, Woo-jin continues to work tirelessly, his exhaustion mounting as the stakes rise, reflecting on Deculan's transformation from villain to a pivotal force. As Woo-jin reflects on his past relationships, memories flood his mind. His ex-girlfriend, a determined workaholic, helped him become a better person, though their differing ambitions eventually led to their breakup. Now, years later, Woo-jin wonders if she has moved on. With a sigh, he observes her new life from a distance, acknowledging the past but accepting the changes it brought. As Woo-jin and his colleague discuss the game's development, rumors about Deculan, a key character, spread quickly through the office. Despite Woo-jin's calm demeanor, his colleague jokes about his potential marriage, causing a moment of awkwardness. They return to the task at hand, discussing changes needed for the game, with Woo-jin expressing his frustration about the recurring bugs. This time, however, a new issue emerges regarding Deculan's model, which seems to have been too challenging for players. Soon after, the conversation shifts to the uncanny resemblance between Woo-jin and his character, Deculan. His colleague jokingly comments on the similarities, triggering a mix of confusion and curiosity in Woo-jin. As they continue their discussion, Woo-jin reflects on the challenges he faces as a game developer, especially with Deculan's unpredictable nature in the game. Later, Woo-jin begins another round of testing. He contemplates the artist's harsh portrayal of Deculan, and how the character's path aligns with his own struggles. As the clock ticks into the late hours, Woo-jin prepares for the next test, unsure of what new developments Deculan's fate will bring. He expresses his frustration over the artist's decision to create such a difficult character and the looming challenges ahead. As Woo-jin continues his work, he reflects on Deculan's stats. The system reveals a mix of impressive attributes, but the character's arrogance and noble background lead to a worst-case personality, one defined by elitism and competitiveness. Despite his potential, Deculan's traits isolate him, and Woo-jin is left wondering if the character is even human. Deculan, however, is meant to grow stronger as the game progresses, but Woo-jin knows he is already surrounded by those who despise him. Woo-jin's workday continues with more testing. Despite the tough challenges, Woo-jin presses on, wondering if he's taking the right approach. The character's progress is halted by various obstacles, and Woo-jin makes adjustments. He wonders if adding too many enhancements will create more problems. While pondering, he gets a notification from the story writer, questioning if everything is in order. Woo-jin quickly realizes that a crucial update has been made, and he must decide whether to apply it. The tension escalates as Woo-jin follows the prompts. In the game world, dark forces begin to gather, and a mysterious aura fills the air. Deculan faces an unexpected shift, his situation growing ever more dangerous. Woo-jin, on the other hand, prepares for what's next. As the storm outside rages, he wonders if he can resolve Deculan's fate and survive the game's chaotic path. In a dimly lit space, Deculan, still recovering, finds himself in a state of confusion. He is greeted by a voice asking if he even recognizes who he is. Struggling to remember, he gradually realizes that he's now trapped in the body of the character he once created, a man doomed to die in the game. The mysterious figure's words hint at Deculine's new fate and role in this strange world, where his life is no longer his own. As Deculine slowly wakes up, he is confronted by a forceful presence, someone commanding him to get up. A woman, upset by his sloth, scolds him harshly, ordering him to move or risk being fired. Despite her anger, he remains motionless, unsure of his purpose or his future in this new body. After a few moments of realization, Deculine acknowledges that he is no longer in the real world but in the world of his own game. The familiar scenery around him confirms this eerie truth. It has been days since the strange events began. And now, faced with his new reality, he understands the gravity of the situation. He has become the villain, a man fated to die no matter what. His journey to change that fate begins here, within the game he created. Deculine, now a week into his new life in the Euclid Manor, begins to accept the reality of his situation, initially believing it was all a dream. The weight of the truth eventually settles in, and he realizes he is no longer just a game character. As he reflects on his new role as the villain, Deculine understands the gravity of his existence, a villain destined for death, causing pain and misfortune to others. He's haunted by the uncertainty of where he stands in the timeline of the game, unsure whether he is at the beginning, middle, or end of the story. While reviewing documents left for him, he considers his fate, knowing that survival is possible only if he changes his path. Deculine receives papers from his half-sister, Mariel, who hints at a potential conflict with his fiancée, Julia. This adds another layer of tension to his already complicated situation. Later, he's reminded about a lecture he's supposed to give, a task he's never done before. Realizing its potential importance, Deculine prepares to attend, hoping that the lecture might provide him with valuable insights to help alter his fate and secure his survival in this unpredictable world. Deculine's primary goal is clear. He must become necessary to the game. The side quest, a university lecture, and even gaining store currency are tasks he must tackle to ensure his survival. The moment he wakes up, he sees the system's message floating above him, reminding him of the importance of this mission. Although the details about the lecture puzzle him, he acknowledges that it's a crucial step in gaining more power and possibly understanding his circumstances. His body possesses a unique attribute called comprehension, which allows him to understand anything by consuming mana. Deculine realizes this ability was given to him to help navigate the complexities of his new life. The attribute's true potential, however, remains largely unknown, suggesting there might be hidden effects that could help him in the future. As he gets ready for the lecture, Deculine reflects on how natural everything feels. From his clothes to the way he moves, it's as if he's always been Deculine. The comfort he feels in this identity is unsettling, but he moves forward, knowing that his survival depends on adapting to this role. While preparing, a fleeting thought crosses his mind. He is not just Deculine anymore. He is both the character and the man who will rewrite his fate. As Deculine sits in the car, he contemplates his goal. His focus is unwavering. He will not lose himself in this world. Determined, he decides to stay vigilant, aware of the potential danger lurking around him. However, he can't help but appreciate the luxury of the car he is riding in, something he has never experienced before. Despite the distraction, his mind remains sharp, especially with the constant reminder of his tasks. The lecture is still ahead, and the thought of reading through the script he was given leaves him feeling skeptical. The fact that it's just a script made for him to follow becomes more apparent. He's certain someone else prepared this on his behalf, probably the real Deculine himself. The assistant, who has been at his service for 3 years, offers a casual, joking comment about Deculine's role. This remark adds a hint of humor to the otherwise tense atmosphere. Though Deculine remains focused, the destination finally comes into view: the Imperial University, his workplace. As Deculine steps out of the car and gazes at the majestic institution, he recalls the letter's instructions, wondering if he's headed to Rodeo Hall. Despite the world around him, the battle for survival continues. Arriving at Rodeo Hall, Deculine prepares to give his lecture. As he enters, whispers fill the room, students excited to hear from the renowned Professor Deculine, a former child prodigy in spell interpretation. The atmosphere is tense with anticipation as he stands at the podium. His voice, calm and authoritative, fills the hall as he introduces himself to the class, asserting his role as both the lecturer and head professor of the university's magic tower. The students are visibly impressed by his presence, some of them whispering in awe about his handsome looks and exceptional intelligence. But Deculine's thoughts are elsewhere. As he begins his lecture, his focus shifts to a deeper, more personal matter. Amid the chatter of admiration, a chilling realization hits him. someone in the room is staring at him with intense hatred. The source of the gaze belongs to a young figure who recognizes Deculane as the enemy of their father. The student's eyes burn with fury, a dark connection to Deculane's past surfacing. Deculane stands still, trying to mask his discomfort while proceeding with the lecture, knowing that his past actions have led to this inevitable confrontation. 3 years ago, Deculane's father, once a renowned scholar, took his own life under suspicious circumstances. His research on spell interpretation was stolen, and Deculane, wrongfully blamed, became a pariah in society. Stripped of his noble title and family estate, he was left alone, an orphan with nothing but his burning desire for revenge. Sworn to reclaim his family's honor, Deculane delved into forbidden magic, especially his father's research on spell interpretation, determined to uncover the truth behind his father's death. At the academy where his father once taught, Deculane concealed his true identity, blending in among students unaware of his past. Despite their ignorance, his knowledge and skills surpassed theirs, including his unmatched mastery of magic. He silently observed those who benefited from his family's downfall, particularly the man who had taken his father's position. Every action he took was calculated, every plan laid out for the perfect moment when he could expose the lies and destroy his enemy. Deculane's focus never wavered. Behind the calm facade of a professor, he harbored a deep, consuming desire for retribution, knowing that only by destroying his enemies would he truly regain everything he had lost. Deculane stood before his class, his mind preoccupied with something more important than the lecture. While the students were immersed in the lesson, he couldn't help but reflect on how the energy flowing within him felt natural, almost effortless, instead of overwhelming. This was a gift, something he had honed. His mana at 3375. The power he carried, though impressive, was still a far cry from those of his enemies, like the mysterious mage whose mana exceeded 30,000. As Deculane continued teaching, he maintained a calm exterior, though he longed to take revenge on those who had wronged him. His thoughts returned to his father's downfall and the unresolved mystery that haunted him. In class, a student raised a peculiar question about his lineage, which Deculane dismissed with disdain, refusing to entertain a question from someone who lacked basic manners. However, as the class continued, a distraction arose. Someone had invoked a forbidden spell in the dormitories. The professor's attention snapped to the issue, and an aura of tension filled the room. Deculane, despite his control, was caught off guard by the student's audacity. As he prepared to deal with the situation, his mana fluctuated, a reminder that his true journey for revenge had only just begun. Deculane, still preoccupied with the strange occurrences, was approached by a student who requested his help with analyzing an unknown spell. As the green energy from the spell swirled in the air, Deculane's expression remained calm, though internally, his mana dropped significantly to 360. Despite his exhaustion, he decided to investigate, using his superior skills to interpret the spell. His eyes gleamed as he identified the magic's true nature. It wasn't just any spell, it was a bewitchment-type barrier, magic, a form of control designed to trap someone. He dismissed the student's attempts at providing more hints, as the solution was clear to him. Back in the lecture hall, Deculane's mind worked quickly. This magic had been created with specific parameters, though the intent behind it seemed simple enough: control. He explained to the class that the barrier was crafted to bind the will of those inside, a terrifying realization that someone on the campus was capable of such magic. As the students absorbed his words, Deculane's thoughts drifted to the perpetrator. He would need to investigate further, but for now, he dismissed the class, his curiosity piqued by the dark forces at play. Later, in the cafeteria, his mind raced as he sat across from Ephraim, who was oddly curious about his investigation. Ephraim was impressed by Deculane's ability to identify the bewitchment-type spell without any obvious parameters. She couldn't understand how he knew, especially since it wasn't a simple spell to decipher. She praised his knowledge, and Deculane, acknowledging her compliment, made it clear that he would add her name to the official report for her contributions. Though she had doubts, she complied, wondering how Deculane could have figured it out when most of the class remained clueless. As the day continued, Deculane reflected on his role as a professor. The lecture he was teaching, understanding elemental magic, was only a small part of his grander scheme. While the students around him admired his skills, Deculane focused on something much bigger: his quest for revenge. He thought about his adversaries, the ones who had wronged him, and how they had made his path so difficult. With a chilling resolve, he vowed to expose them soon. Later that evening, as he thought about the barriers that had been placed in his way, a smirk crossed his face. He wasn't just going to fight, he was going to destroy the obstacles. The time would come when he would finally reveal the truth and claim his revenge. His eyes burned with determination as he sharpened his strategy, knowing that every move he made was one step closer to victory. Deculine completes a quest that involved understanding a complex and powerful spell, but the intricacies of the magic leave him uncertain of its true nature. As he reflects on the spell, he realizes that even with double the mana he currently has, he wouldn't be able to comprehend or control its full potential. The swirling magical energy in his mind adds to his sense of mystery and unease. Suddenly, a familiar face appears before him. Julie von Dea Freyden, a character he has seen many times through his monitor, but never in person, now stands in front of him. She is a future legend in the making, someone destined for greatness in this world. Julie greets him with casual familiarity, mentioning a promise they made a week ago. Deculine, however, has no recollection of this promise, and her words bring a sense of tension between them. Julie's demeanor shifts as she presses the matter, challenging him to remember their past connection. Deculine, unsure of how to handle the situation, attempts to walk away but finds his path blocked. Julie's words, pointing to past failures and broken promises, confront him head-on. The moment between them grows increasingly charged, forcing Deculine to face unresolved issues. Deculine, now facing Julie, reflects on the gravity of their situation. As Julie speaks about their world possibly crumbling, a sense of inevitability hangs in the air. With her words, she declares that the trust he had placed in her was misplaced, and he is left questioning the dynamics of their relationship. Despite the tension, she gives him permission to leave, and he walks away, though the weight of her words lingers. In another scene, the narrative shifts to Julie's internal thoughts. She explains her engagement to Deculine, not out of love, but out of necessity. The union between him, a talented mage, and herself, a skilled knight, is politically advantageous. She muses that the match is strategically sound, aligning two noble families, the Euclines and the Freydens. However, beneath this calculated engagement, there is an unsettling truth. Deculine's talents were never as great as they seemed, and the marriage, though beneficial, has its flaws. Julie admits her dissatisfaction with the marriage. Even though it was devoid of love, the lies surrounding it are what she cannot forgive. Her conviction as a knight drives her to face the truths hidden in their union. As she walks away, she insists that they fulfill their roles, regardless of their emotions. Deculine, recognizing her unyielding resolve, agrees to follow her lead. The story then transitions to the Imperial University, where new challenges await, including mastering magic at its most prestigious institution. As Deculine walks across a large, well-maintained campus, he can't help but admire its beauty. The setting reminds him of an American college campus, complete with a lush garden and vibrant atmosphere. Reflecting on the past, he remembers how he and his team worked tirelessly to create such environments in the game world, wishing he could have experienced it under different circumstances. Suddenly, a loud noise distracts him, and he sees a figure sprinting toward him. The person appears to be in a hurry, but in the chaos, they collide, sending the individual sprawling onto the ground. Apologizing, the figure, named Alan, explains that they were rushing to meet a professor. Deculine is momentarily confused, but he recalls the person from earlier and realizes that it's just Alan, not an enemy. The two exchange brief words as they stand up, their brief interaction unexpectedly lighthearted. Moving on, Deculine finds himself once again facing a familiar character from his past. The name Zorro comes to mind, but Alan quickly corrects him, revealing his true identity. This small mix-up is followed by an awkward pause, with Deculine wondering just who Zorro is, leaving him curious about the connections in this world. The story takes a darker turn as Deculine visits a coffee shop, where he receives documents revealing new developments. Among the papers is a letter marked with a prestigious seal, Ephraim Luna, a young woman with a powerful lineage who lost her father due to a tragic event involving Deculine, the very man at the heart of Deculine's survival. The stakes grow higher as the mystery behind the characters and their past deepens. As Deculine reviews the documents in front of him, he notices an intriguing detail about Ephraim Luna. Despite her immense talent, there is a noticeable lack of sponsorships tied to her name. This raises questions. His thoughts drift to the reason behind this. Perhaps the people who could sponsor her are too afraid to get involved with someone of her stature. He reflects on how her talents are more than enough to earn her a place at the prestigious Magic Tower, and yet she remains untapped by the powerful figures in the world. The narrative then shifts to a more serious tone as Deculine is presented with documents that reveal something even darker. A letter confirming the dissolution of his engagement with Deculine makes the stakes personal. He now has a clear path forward, but with this new information comes the weight of the past, the choices made, and the consequences they carry. As he reads further, a voice whispers in his mind, urging him to make a different choice, to take the power he can no longer deny. He reflects on the dangerous world around him and his conviction grows stronger. To survive, he must become stronger, more cunning. Decollane steels himself for what's to come, knowing full well the challenges he must face, and the sacrifices he'll have to make. Decollane, deep in thought, recognizes the limitations of his current abilities. Despite his potential, his talents remain average compared to the strength of others. As he contemplates the future, he understands that survival is impossible without greater power. The weight of this realization presses upon him. He cannot withstand the numerous deaths that are destined to come if he doesn't grow stronger. Determined to change his fate, Decollane considers his unique abilities. Although he lacks control over all four elements like others, he knows he possesses a distinct advantage. His manipulation powers, though unrefined, show great promise. He begins to focus on training, learning the basics of manipulating objects with his mind. As he practices, he starts to see how his potential can be unlocked, and the realization sparks a new sense of hope. In his first test, Decollane manages to manipulate objects around him. Floating shards obey his commands, demonstrating that his skills are starting to take shape. As his confidence grows, he continues to refine his abilities. Finally, Decollane successfully controls a set of levitating blades with flawless precision. While this is only the beginning, Decollane knows this new power will be crucial in overcoming the dangers ahead, and his journey toward survival is just beginning. Decollane, realizing the true strength of magic, delves into the deeper intricacies of this world. As he contemplates his power, he understands that the magic circles in this realm grow stronger the larger they become. Determined to increase his own strength, he decides to cover not just his mind but his entire body with magic circles. His focus shifts to enhancing his physical prowess, developing a new power called Iron Man, which boosts his physical attributes to an incredible level. This transformation makes him aware of the immense potential within his body, even though it comes with a unique restriction. As Decollane pushes his limits, he suffers an overwhelming pain. The force is unbearable, like nothing he's ever felt before. Despite the agony, he remains resolute, refusing to show weakness. With the elegance expected of a noble, he holds his composure and continues his training. However, his mana reserves begin to drain rapidly, leading to a failure. He realizes that despite his advancements, he still lacks enough mana to fully execute his newfound powers. A month later, after attending a seminar, Decollane reflects on the progress he's made. He now bears a magic circle on his shoulder, a symbol of his hard work. With determination, he steps into his next challenge, aware that his journey to mastering his abilities is far from over. Meanwhile, the class begins with a mix of frustration and curiosity, as Decollane's students are left to wonder about his methods and the true nature of their lessons. While walking through the woods, Decollane is surprised by a figure approaching him. He turns to find Sylvia von Josephine Iliade, a name he recognizes but is confused by her reaction. She doesn't seem to recognize him, and Decollane is taken aback, unsure of what's going on. As he tries to understand the situation, he feels something strange in the air. The atmosphere shifts as Sylvia seems to be acting differently, and Decollane wonders if there's some kind of manipulation at play. His suspicion deepens when he realizes that he has been in a similar situation before, a memory surfacing about a confrontation with House Ilias and its power struggles. Sylvia's unusual behavior raises questions, but Decollane remains calm, even as his curiosity grows. When Decollane tries to approach the situation with logic, Sylvia suddenly begins to react to his presence. Despite her apparent confusion, she is still performing magic. Decollane is perplexed at her failure to respond to his direct questions, even as a wave of energy builds around them. He decides to confront her directly, asking if she truly doesn't recognize him and hinting at their shared past. Sylvia's hesitation only fuels Decollane's suspicions that something far more significant is at play here. As Decollane confronts Sylvia, she denies recognizing him and even seems to brush off their past connection. She also mentions that she doesn't know him, only his father, which takes Decollane by surprise. He's shocked to hear that Sylvia, of all people, has no recollection of him, especially considering their past. Sylvia's words cause Decollane to question everything, but he quickly pushes aside the confusion, focusing on her reaction. Suddenly, Sylvia's attitude shifts drastically. She becomes angry and defensive, demanding to know why Decollane is questioning her. At that moment, a surge of power erupts from her, as she releases a burst of magical energy, intensifying the tension between them. The magic in the air crackles violently, her aura glowing with a fierce green light. Other students nearby start noticing the scene, whispering among themselves about the confrontation. Sylvia seems determined to show her superiority, confronting Deculin with the intention of intimidating him. The force of her magic grows stronger as she demands Deculine to repeat what he said, signaling a confrontation that's likely to escalate further. In the heat of the moment, Deculine stands his ground, fully aware of the brewing conflict, his thoughts racing as he tries to comprehend Sylvia's strange behavior. Something deeper is at play, and he knows it's only a matter of time before it all unravels. With fury twisting his face, the green-haired attacker hurled a surge of bright energy forward, standing directly in his path. Sylvia, the blonde woman, observed the incoming strike with tense focus, refusing to retreat despite the overwhelming pressure. Moments later, the impact erupted into a violent explosion that shattered the ground and scattered debris, forcing bystanders to shield themselves from the blast. Dust filled the forest path as shaken figures struggled to regain balance. Nearby, Sylvia was seized amid the disorder, her captor acting aggressively while others watched with anger still burning in their expressions. Suddenly, an ominous purple glow gathered ahead, twisting into a dark vortex that pulsed with unstable energy and drew every gaze toward it. Expanding rapidly, the swirling portal devoured light around it, radiating chaotic power that made the air tremble and the earth crack beneath. Realization dawned across the group as the vortex intensified, its unstable core signaling an imminent detonation that threatened everyone nearby. Without warning, destructive waves burst outward, transforming the magical disturbance into a disaster, capable of annihilating the entire area. Amid the fading chaos, Ephorine, the silver-haired woman, lifted her gaze while an unnatural silence settled over the shaken battlefield. Then Deculanen stepped forward with composed authority, summoning sharp blue crystals that hovered in precise formation under his telekinetic command through calculated movement. The floating shards spread outward and stabilized the space. Across the clearing, stunned students watched as the crystals shimmered brilliantly, reflecting controlled power rather than reckless destruction. Behind the spectacle, Ephorine studied the spell in awe, recognizing that this display embodied refined enchantment rather than simple combat magic. Finally, the crystalline fragments descended like controlled fragments of ice, sealing the aftermath and leaving the forest silent beneath Deculin's overwhelming mastery. The lecture was abruptly stopped as an authority figure announced that everyone except those responsible for the disturbance must leave immediately. Professor Deculin stood calmly in the dim hall, his stern presence making it clear that the academy would not ignore what had just occurred. Meanwhile, Ephorine looked terrified, as she realized she had been involved in the chaos, and she feared serious consequences were about to follow. A banner marked the entrance of the interrogation room, signaling that the situation had escalated into an official disciplinary process. Deculane arrived first and waited in silence, sitting with composure as if he already understood how the meeting would unfold. Two department professors soon appeared, praising the earlier magical display and treating the incident as a lesson for the entire academy. Inside the meeting hall, the chairwoman demanded to know who dared to lay hands on Sylvia, the daughter of the powerful House Iliadi. Rumors spread among the professors, as they discussed how the attacker seemed like an unknown outsider rather than a proper academy student. Deculine remained expressionless while listening, realizing the professors were already shaping the narrative to protect the academy's reputation. Sylvia's image appeared in everyone's mind as a noble victim. Dark pressure surrounded Ephorine as fear poured from her, showing that she understood the academy could easily sacrifice her to calm the nobles. Deculine reflected on the cruel reality that a villain's fate always tightened around him whenever events failed to follow the expected script. The meeting concluded with the decision that Deculine must hold a mandatory discussion with Sylvia and Ephorine to settle the matter. One professor accused Ephorine harshly, demanding to know why she fought. Unable to reveal the truth, Ephorine refused to explain, leaving the professors furious and causing suspicion to grow even stronger around her. Sylvia stood upright in the disciplinary hall and coldly mentioned Ephorine's late father, using his death to belittle her standing before the gathered professors. Across from her, Ephorine lowered her head as anger and humiliation built inside. The surrounding faculty reacted with disapproval toward Ephorine, treating her restraint as guilt while reinforcing the clear difference in status between her and Sylvia. When asked to explain the incident, Sylvia described the classroom dispute in a controlled tone, framing the destruction of work as an accident. Seated apart in the wide chamber, Ephorine appeared small and isolated, while the narrative subtly shifted blame onto her reaction rather than the original cause. Several professors criticized Ephorine's temperament and suggested harsh punishment, implying that expulsion would restore order and protect the academy's reputation. As accusations intensified, Ephorine felt surrounded by hostility, imagining every insult and reprimand pressing down without any ally defending her. Memories of her childhood and the absence of protection deepened her sense of cold isolation, strengthening her belief that no one would stand for her. Through clenched resolve, she concluded that everything unfolding in the chamber stemmed from the influence of those with greater authority. Observing the organized condemnation, the chairwoman decided to hear Professor Decolin's view before finalizing the committee's judgment. Maintaining composure, Decoline acknowledged his role within the academy. Ephraim believed the outcome was already sealed, assuming that his statement would only confirm the accusations against her. Instead of supporting the prevailing opinion, Decoline unexpectedly directed attention towards Sylvia and questioned her involvement in the conflict. Shock spread across the chamber as the focus shifted, disrupting the confident posture Sylvia had maintained moments earlier. With measured reasoning, Decoline implied that Sylvia possessed the ability to prevent the escalation, yet chose not to intervene, challenging the certainty of her innocence. Sylvia reacted sharply when her previous justification was dismissed, realizing that her position alone would not secure unquestioned approval from the committee. Soon after, she formally admitted partial fault for escalating the argument. Across the hall, Ephraim looked confused and unsettled, unable to understand why attention had shifted toward Sylvia instead of condemning her outright. Although Ephraim believed she alone deserved blame, Decoline calmly redirected responsibility toward the broader context of the confrontation. By emphasizing that the fault lay with the one who initiated harm rather than the one who defended, he subtly protected her from harsher punishment. Silence spread among the professors as they recognized his reasoning. After the chairwoman declared the matter settled without disciplinary action, the committee accepted that the conflict would not stain the Academy's record. As the meeting dispersed, Decoline justified his stance as a decision made for the sake of the students, rather than personal sentiment. Before leaving, Ephraim gathered her courage and confronted Sylvia with a lingering question about her late father, hinting at unresolved history beneath the dispute. Ephraim approached Decoline carefully, holding back her emotions as she asked about something important from the past that still haunted her thoughts deeply. The silver-haired girl demanded answers about the Luna family and her father's death. Decoline remained calm and distant, giving no warmth. Yet his silence made Ephraim realize he remembered more than he was willing to admit openly. Even though Decoline stayed expressionless, Ephraim struggled with the idea that he might not remember her father at all, which felt even more painful. Without offering comfort, Decoline warned her that she should not waste her future by obsessing over old tragedies that could not be changed anymore. Ephraim froze in place, shocked by his blunt response. Standing alone in the hallway, Ephraim watched Decoline leave. A quiet realization settled into her heart as she accepted that Decoline truly knew about her father and had not been ignorant of his suffering. Clenching her fist, she concluded that Decoline must have helped her earlier out of guilt, and that sense of responsibility pushed him to assist her. Ephraim remembered the moment she had collapsed before. Relief slowly replaced her anxiety as she convinced herself that Decoline still remembered everything, meaning her father had not been forgotten completely. Feeling satisfied with that conclusion, she walked away while the system reward appeared, showing her fate had improved and her survival chances increased. Elsewhere, Sylvia sat in a moving car beside a serious blonde man as the vehicle sped along a quiet road lined with trees and sunlight. The man, revealed as Giltheon von Ludwig Iliadi, spoke calmly, telling Sylvia that she no longer needed to worry about the child involved in the matter. Ephraim appeared in Sylvia's thoughts as Giltheon mentioned her talent. 10 years earlier, on the Academy's aptitude examination day, young Ephraim stood among other children, unaware that this meeting would alter her destiny completely. A powerful magical device reacted violently when both Ephraim and Sylvia touched it, drawing stunned attention from the examiners observing the results. The overseeing mage declared that both girls possessed the rare potential to become archmages, a revelation that shocked everyone present. The title of Archmage represented the highest realm of magic, a domain so elevated that even emperors could not easily interfere. Although many sought that position, tradition allowed only 3 Archmages per era, and 2 seats were already vacant at the time. Destined to fill 1 seat, Sylvia of the Iliadi family secured her future, while Ephraim's role remained uncertain. Pressure soon followed as political tensions rose, and powerful figures demanded sacrifices to secure their children's entrance into the Academy. Kagan Luna was forced to surrender his daughter's opportunity, exposing the true reason the Luna family fell under the Iliades' oppression. Sylvia later realized that the Luna family's ruin occurred solely because of her own path toward becoming an archmage. During the carriage ride, Sylvia reflected quietly, acknowledging that becoming an archmage had always been her wish and unavoidable fate. Despite concerns about Ephraim and Professor Decoline, Sylvia understood that Decoline was more complex than rumors described. Confidence settled within her as she admitted she already knew that Professor Deculine had uncovered her hidden intentions. At the critical moment, Sylvia recognized that Deculine had seen through her trap before it could fully succeed. The explosive magic erupted. Yet Deculine's interference caused Ephirine's mana to disperse before the trap inflicted severe harm. Realizing the scale of danger she had nearly caused, Sylvia understood that the greater the explosion, the worse Ephirine's fate would have been. Sylvia realized that Deculine had discovered her entire scheme immediately, even though she had blocked magical observation within the sealed room. Rather than exposing her publicly, Deculine forced a compromise, implying that he knew the truth and expected her cooperation without resistance. Facing his overwhelming presence, Sylvia understood she had no choice but to accept his terms and reassess her shallow judgment of him. Confusion troubled Sylvia as she questioned what kind of man Deculine truly was beneath his reputation for arrogance and cold superiority. Several days later, attention shifted to Deculine's manor, where preparations quietly unfolded for an important social gathering. Inside the estate, Deculine calmly prepared to depart, maintaining his composed demeanor as attendants confirmed his readiness. Seated within his vehicle, Deculine reflected that supporting Ephirine had removed a fatal variable and granted him valuable store currency. Although he never expected the top examinee to be Ephirine, he acknowledged that she had not yet grown hostile toward him. Despite disliking social events, Deculine resolved to attend the New Year's celebration to secure additional store currency for future plans. Upon arrival at the grand venue, Deculine stepped into a hall filled with high-ranking nobles and influential figures of the empire. Observing the crowd carefully, he noticed many faces reminiscent of characters he once modeled, reinforcing his belief that attending was necessary. Confidence steadied his thoughts as he concluded that gathering information among these elites would benefit his long-term survival strategy. Suddenly, whispers spread across the hall as nobles recognized Deculine's unexpected presence among them. Several guests reacted with visible surprise, clearly unsettled by the arrival of a man once labeled a genius beyond ordinary standards. Standing under the bright chandeliers, Deculine remained composed, fully aware that his appearance alone had already shifted the atmosphere of the event. At the crowded banquet hall, Deculine was surrounded by nobles who eagerly tried to introduce their children and gain his attention through forced politeness. Overwhelmed by the noise and constant approaches, he quickly realized that his reputation had made him an object of interest for political and social advantage. Annoyance grew as Deculine corrected his earlier assumptions, understanding that attending this gathering would not be simple or comfortable. Deculine moved through the hall, with a sharp gaze searching for someone specific, while recognizing the presence of an important figure from his past knowledge. Tension rose as he noticed that the person he expected was missing, making him question the situation and possible hidden intentions. Suddenly, a dangerous woman appeared, revealed as the adventurer Ganesha, whose presence confirmed that the event had become far more unpredictable. Through the crowded university hall, Deculine moved with urgency, his black coat trailing behind as nobles and students filled the corridor. Sudden murmurs rose when his presence was recognized, and shifting gazes followed him as he slowed, after spotting a familiar figure ahead. Standing firmly in his path, Ihelm revealed his imperial rank, allowing the weight of his title to draw attention from everyone nearby. Tension surfaced as Ihelm questioned Deculine's appearance, hinting that their shared history within the academy remained unresolved. Years of rivalry between them lingered beneath the surface, shaped by professional competition and quiet resentment during their time as professors. Maintaining composure, Deculine observed his counterpart carefully, choosing restraint while assessing the hostility in Ihelm's tone. Without warning, Ihelm seized Deculine by the collar, causing nearby students to freeze as the confrontation became physical. Dark energy began swirling around Ihelm's body, revealing the depth of his anger as control steadily slipped from his grasp. Before the clash could fully erupt, the scene shifted away, leaving the conflict hanging as evening approached. Outside the brightly lit building, Deculine stood alone on a balcony, distancing himself from the noise of the gathering. Quiet reflection occupied his thoughts until a subtle presence behind him disrupted the stillness of the night. Approaching with confident steps, Ganesha appeared before him, her expression calm yet purposeful. Claiming she had merely lost her way, Ganesha maintained a relaxed posture that suggested deliberate intent. Conversation turned toward a past mission involving magic and a child once placed in danger, exposing unfinished matters between them. Under the balcony lights, both remained facing one another in silence, aware that their shared history had not yet reached its conclusion. Before taking control of Deculine's body, his former life had been filled with selfish choices, where he accepted a twisted role and ignored those who needed help. Hatred grew around him as his actions destroyed trust, leaving fear and resentment behind, while many suffered because of his pursuit of fame. Despite that cruel past, a new resolve formed inside him, and he decided the life he lived from this moment onward would follow a different path. Outside the academy building at night, Ganesha watched Dakulin carefully. Rain began to fall lightly, covering the area in silence as Dakulin remained calm. While standing with her arms crossed, Ganesha reflected on how the original Dakulin had been feared, powerful, and skilled enough to control others. Serious concern entered her thoughts as she considered that Dakulin might already be possessed, since his personality no longer matched the rumors. Another possibility troubled her further, because if he had gained the abilities of the All-Savior, his influence could become far more dangerous. From the balcony area, she observed his steady posture and realized that his strange calmness was not an act, but something truly different. Walking away from the gathering, Dakulin spoke with a cold tone. Uncertainty spread across Ganesha's face as she questioned his choice, since abandoning the event seemed careless for someone in his position. Without turning back, Dakulin criticized her lack of manners, then continued forward as she remained behind, watching him disappear into the night. Inside the hall, Dakulin pushed through the crowd, sensing that his actions were already affecting the game-like world around him. A system-like message suddenly appeared, announcing that store currency +1 had been gained, shocking Ihelm as he struggled to understand what happened. Pressure built in Dakulin's mind as he realized he could not stay comfortable anywhere, because every movement he made seemed to trigger new events. Inside, a richly decorated room, Rayleigh stood with her hands on her waist, showing frustration as she faced a silver-haired woman seated calmly at a long dining table. Across the table, the silver-haired woman remained composed, eating without concern while indicating she had no desire to attend the social gathering. A shift in attention occurred when the topic turned toward Dakulin, and Rayleigh's expression tightened as curiosity about his recent behavior surfaced. Concern became clearer as Rayleigh reflected on rumors surrounding Dakulin, especially the claim that someone else might be influencing him. From a distance in the hall, Dakulin was seen walking alone beneath dim lights, reinforcing the image of isolation spreading around him. Doubt lingered in the silver-haired woman's thoughts as she quietly concluded that the current situation involving him was far from favorable. Sudden recognition crossed her face when Dakulin's name echoed in her mind, prompting a subtle but visible reaction. Meanwhile, within the grand corridor, Dakulin moved steadily toward the exit, ignoring the surrounding nobles and their attention. Whispers followed his departure, as observers questioned why a man known for strict discipline would leave without acknowledging anyone. Speculation intensified among guests who believed his early exit resulted from conflict, possibly connected to disagreements earlier that evening. Although rumors spread quickly, no clear evidence explained how such private matters became public knowledge inside the gathering. As Dakulin walked down the illuminated hall alone, a system message appeared, announcing that a social event condition had been completed and his stored currency increased. A full week passed since Dakulin entered this world, and he used every day to rebuild his strength. Sweat ran down his skin as he pushed his stamina beyond its limit. Weakness remained, showing him that survival would not be easy. Suddenly, a strange sound echoed through the area, followed by an unstable magical presence. Careful reflection made Dakulin realize that his safety was still fragile. Heavy pressure settled on him because his position as a professor was tied directly to his life. After steadying his breathing, he accepted that rest was no longer an option. A stronger mindset replaced his exhaustion. Inside his office, an official statement was waiting on the desk. Reading deeper, he discovered the sender was the Magic Tower qualification of the Professor Committee. The document clearly meant his status was being judged. Silence filled the room while the paper stayed in his hands. Nothing about the message felt ordinary. Fast footsteps echoed through the hallway as Dakulin reread the announcement. The notice demanded an audit hearing and required him to prepare research documents. Unexpected fear rose when he realized this event did not match what he remembered from the game. Something in the world had shifted away from the original flow. Strong resolve formed as he reminded himself of the truth. His professor title was not just a position, but the foundation of his survival. Standing before the laboratory door, Dakulin decided he had to find answers inside. Useful materials and research records were his only chance to survive the audit. The door opened, revealing a space that should have been organized and controlled. Instead, broken equipment and scattered tools covered the area. Shock hit him as he stared at the ruined laboratory. Preparing documents would now become far more difficult than expected. Dust filled the abandoned laboratory as Dakulin stepped inside and examined the scattered tools. The disorder felt unnatural because he knew this room should have been maintained. An unusual pile of trash stood out among the chaos, looking intentionally placed instead of random. That detail made Deculin suspicious, because it seemed like someone tried to cover something. A quiet sense of irritation grew when he realized the mess could be sabotage. Someone likely wanted to slow him down before the audit hearing. Using telekinesis, Deculin lifted debris without touching it, clearing the area efficiently. A research notebook was revealed beneath the dirt, and he picked it up immediately. Strange symbols covered the pages, making it clear the contents were encrypted. Frustration followed when he realized he could not understand the research at all. Golden magic suddenly reacted as Deculin opened the notebook further. A surge of energy spread through the pages, almost like a defensive mechanism. Careful review showed the research was incomplete, but filled with advanced ideas. Deculin understood that repairing this research could help him survive the upcoming audit. Despite its flaws, the notebook still held potential. A name appeared in the records, revealing the author as Efim Luna. The discovery shocked him because the Luna family was known for opposing him. Memories reminded him that Efim lived under heavy pressure from her family. A plan formed as he considered adding her name as a co-author. That decision could protect him while also pulling her closer to his side. Later, the university cafe was filled with students discussing teamwork among commoners. Efim sat nearby, looking irritated and exhausted. Her expression showed she disliked being dragged into group struggles. A dessert rested in front of her, yet it failed to improve her mood. Isolation surrounded her despite being among many people. Inside the university cafe, commoner students urged Efim to act as their representative in class matters. Their serious expressions showed how urgent their situation had become. Responsibility was placed directly on her shoulders. Conversation shifted toward finding a professor willing to support them, but most candidates were quickly rejected. Many faculty members favored nobles, leaving few realistic choices. Frustration grew as options disappeared. Deculin's name eventually surfaced, causing visible hesitation among the group. His strict reputation and noble status made him seem unapproachable. Doubt spread across their faces. Tension increased when some insisted that Deculin might be their only chance. Efim reacted with discomfort, clearly unwilling to approach him. Fear and pride conflicted within her. Determined classmates continued pressing her, despite her reluctance. Pressure mounted as they argued there was no alternative. Momentum carried the group outside, as they decided to act immediately. Efim followed, still uncertain about the outcome. The situation moved beyond discussion. Anxiety showed on Efim's face as she tried to steady herself. The burden of speaking to Deculin weighed heavily. Confidence began to weaken. A firm voice suddenly ordered her to stop, cutting through the noise. Deculin stood before them, calm and observant. His presence alone shifted the mood to tense silence. The confrontation had arrived unexpectedly. Surprise flashed across Efim's expression as she looked up at him. Behind her, the other students froze under his gaze. The difference in status became clear. No one stepped forward. Silence settled over the courtyard while Deculin waited. Their bold plan now felt reckless. Reality replaced earlier confidence. Across the academy courtyard, Efim hurried toward Deculin, her face stiff with urgency while he stood still and watched her approach without reacting. Nearby Julia froze in surprise, clearly shaken by the sight of Efim confronting the professor who was feared by most students. Stopping right in front of him, Efim gathered her courage and bowed deeply, forcing herself to act respectful, even though frustration showed in her posture. With both hands stretched forward, she presented an official document and explained that she needed his signature to establish a new club. Deculin glanced down at the paper with a calm expression, giving no hint of what he thought while silently judging the request. After a brief pause, he accepted the document, making it clear that he was not rejecting her immediately. Without wasting time, Deculin signed the form neatly, causing Efim's eyes to widen because she had expected resistance. Handing the paper back, he instructed her to send the club details later. As he walked away across the open courtyard, Efim stared at the signature. Inside the lecture hall, Deculin began teaching about pure elements, writing organized explanations, while students listened in tense silence. From her seat, Efim studied him carefully, remembering the courtyard scene and wondering if his decision had a hidden purpose. Doubts grew stronger as the lesson continued, and she started to suspect that his actions were based on strategy rather than kindness. Whispers spread among the students, and rumors formed quickly about why Deculin would ever approve something connected to Efim. At the front, Deculin ignored the tension and continued his lecture smoothly. Even when the classroom settled down, Efim remained distracted, still questioning why the cold professor had chosen to help her at all. Within the lecture hall, Deculin stands before the tiered seats, and explains that every magic circle holds structured reasoning behind each engraved stroke. Murmurs spread among the students as he forms a glowing spell circle in his palm, demonstrating how minor adjustments alter elemental properties. Raising a floating book surrounded by mana, he announces the concept of flowing fire, shifting the classroom's atmosphere into focused anticipation. Brilliant waves of blue and green mana expand around him, revealing a level of control that surpasses ordinary lecture demonstrations. Students stare in disbelief as layered magic circles rotate above, displaying refined mastery that feels closer to research than routine instruction. Sylvia, who once lost enthusiasm for learning, watches with widened eyes as inspiration slowly returns through his unconventional explanation. Holding a completed circle aloft, Deculin clarifies that the structure represents summoning, its geometry balanced with deliberate precision. He then combines it with a fire circle, causing the two designs to overlap and generate a violent surge of transformed energy. From that fusion emerges a torrent of flames that moves like water, flowing smoothly across the space instead of burning chaotically. Shock spreads across Sylvia's face as the fire bends and streams obediently, defying her understanding of rigid elemental categories. Behind her, classmates struggle to process the theory, realizing that intuitive genius without structure would limit magical growth. Through vivid imagery and layered diagrams, Deculin contrasts instinct with discipline, emphasizing that theory shapes raw talent into stable power. An hourglass illustration appears as he describes the paradox of magic, where excessive focus on formulas restricts natural flow. Silence fills the hall, while he explains that intuition cannot be properly defined, even though it influences every advanced spell. Concluding the demonstration, Deculin lowers the fading circle and leaves the students confronted with a practical lesson that challenges their assumptions. The grand towers of the academy rise beneath a clear sky as Ephraim leaves the lecture hall, still thinking about how different Deculin's class felt from the rumors. Inside the Magic Tower dorm corridor, she pauses with folded arms, replaying the lesson in her mind and admitting she has never focused so intensely before. Reaching her door, she stiffens after noticing threatening graffiti scrawled across the surface, realizing the harassment against her has not stopped. While inspecting the damage, she discovers an envelope slipped near the doorframe and cautiously pulls it free. The document inside reveals an official sponsorship certificate, bearing a seal that immediately captures her full attention. Suspicion mixes with excitement as she considers who would support someone disliked by both a noble household and Professor Deculin. Determined to confirm its authenticity, Ephraim heads to the Magical Administration office and pushes the door open with urgency. Standing before a staff member, she demands verification, her hands gripping the certificate as doubt flickers across her face. After examining the seal carefully, the staff member confirms it is genuine, leaving Ephraim stunned into silence. Joy overwhelms her as the realization sinks in, and she smiles brightly while clutching the valuable document. A sudden wave of caution follows, prompting her to glance around nervously and worry that others might discover she now holds significant funding. Anxiety grows as she calculates the amount written on the certificate, recognizing that 100,000 eln could change everything. Back in her dorm room, she hurriedly begins packing her belongings into a suitcase, preparing for possible trouble. Regret surfaces as she reflects on how easily she trusted the situation without questioning hidden risks. In her panic, she trips and crashes to the floor beneath her desk, clutching her head while realizing that sudden fortune has brought unexpected fear. Ephraim lies on the floor after her fall, blinking in confusion as she realizes she has not fully woken from the shock of everything that happened. Slowly lifting her head, she begins to smile as the reality of the sponsorship sinks in, believing someone finally acknowledged her abilities and efforts. Determination returns as she steadies herself and looks toward the bright window, deciding she must work harder and move forward instead of panicking. Under a clear sky, Euclid Manor rises in silence, marking the estate where urgent matters unfold. Reports confirm that Deculin has departed for the Schattenjewel auction without delay. Inside the residence, a tense exchange confirms his destination and estimated arrival time. Frustration surfaces when she recalls the enormous sum he wasted the previous year. Anxiety grows as she imagines another reckless investment damaging the family's stability. Beyond the capital, a polished vehicle stops before the grand venue in Guten. With steady steps, he proceeds through the entrance, ignoring the surrounding whispers. Determination guides him, as his goal lies among the rare items displayed within. Memories of his limited telekinesis surface, while he evaluates his current abilities. Steel-crafted equipment supports his weakness, yet he understands it cannot serve as a permanent answer. Within the VIP waiting room, Deculin remains seated, carefully analyzing the potential listings of the auction. Calculation fills his gaze as he anticipates a specific artifact. Suddenly, A subtle shift in presence interrupts his thoughts. Attention sharpens when he senses someone unexpected entering the chamber. Recognition follows as Julie comes into view, altering the atmosphere immediately. Surprise flickers within him, realizing this encounter could complicate his strategy. From her seat, Julie turns fully toward him, posture firm and guarded, maintaining composure. Deculine stands before her without visible emotion. Brief words are exchanged, yet restraint dominates the interaction. Awareness settles in that their meeting carries deliberate purpose. Direct confrontation begins as Julie questions the letter he previously sent. Calm reasoning guides Deculin's explanation regarding the criminals connected to the auction's items. Logic supports his claim that intervention is necessary. Seriousness deepens when he reveals the final artifact listed for bidding. Understanding dawns that this object may determine the success of his survival plan. Julie stands with a cold expression, clearly intending to end her connection with Deculin. Walking away, Julie leaves Deculin behind without hesitation, showing no intention of staying close. Dark memories and future risks weigh heavily on Deculin as he calculates the consequences of their relationship. From a distance, Deculin studies Julie and questions why she would appear at an auction. Doubt forms as he assumes she has no reason to involve herself in such an event. Sudden shock appears on Julie's face when Deculin directly challenges her reason for coming. Embarrassment replaces her anger as she tries to defend herself with weak excuses. Deculin observes Julie's flustered response and notices her emotions are unusually visible. A strange warmth spreads through his thoughts, creating discomfort he cannot easily explain. Confusion grows as he realizes he is reacting differently than expected. He becomes aware that his own emotional control is slipping, as if he is being influenced by another personality. An announcement interrupts their tension, signaling the auction will begin soon. Both of them shift attention toward the main hall, knowing the real conflict is about to start. The auction hall fills with nobles as the first item is presented on stage. Deculin stays alert while the crowd watches the elegant vase introduced by the host. Golden light begins to rise from the object, and Deculin recognizes it as a strange magical reaction. Bidding begins immediately, and the price climbs rapidly through the hall. Wealthy guests compete aggressively, proving the item is far more valuable than expected. While the numbers rise, Deculin analyzes the growing magical glow and links it to hidden enhancement effects. Several nobles raise their offers, pushing the auction into a fierce contest. The atmosphere becomes loud and tense as the price reaches millions in a short time. A decisive bidder suddenly wins, ending the struggle with an overwhelming final offer. Deculin studies the bidding, realizing the vase price has climbed far beyond its real value. Several luxury items are presented next, and wealthy guests quickly buy them at extreme prices. Another item is sold for an outrageous amount, shocking the audience. Suspicion spreads as nobles begin connecting the chaos to Deculin's presence. Julie listens quietly while the auction continues, though her expression shows hidden frustration. Unease rises as she senses Deculin is acting differently than expected. Private thoughts reveal her true reason for attending, which is to obtain Winter's fire. Determination replaces hesitation as she decides she cannot leave without it. A sudden announcement introduces a rare material, immediately drawing her full attention. The room becomes louder as excitement spreads among the guests. The snowflare stone appears, shining with a cold blue glow across the stage. Deculin reacts instantly, recognizing it as one of the rarest metals in the world. Information spreads that the stone holds both heat and cold energy at once. The audience grows restless, understanding its value for forging powerful weapons. Deculin confirms this item is the best ingredient he can obtain for his survival plans. His expression hardens as he decides he must claim it. Julie watches the stone with equal intensity, showing she also wants it. Silent rivalry forms as both realize only one person can win. Bidding explodes rapidly, rising from millions into tens of millions within moments. Julie believes she is close to victory as the final offers slow down. Confidence appears briefly, suggesting she expects the crowd to stop. Aya's sudden bid from guest 777 reaches 31 million eln, ending the contest immediately. Recognition strikes her as she realizes the same bidder has controlled multiple auctions today. Julie's expression hardens as suspicion fills her mind toward Deculin. She can no longer ignore the pattern behind his aggressive spending. Calm composure stays on Deculin's face as the auction announces the massive 31 million bid. Rumors quickly form among nobles who assume the snowflare stone is meant for his fiancée. Julie becomes the center of attention as the crowd links the purchase to her. A sudden realization strikes Deculin when he notices Julie's presence nearby. Uneasiness grows as he understands he may have been bidding against her. Careful thought follows as Deculin considers how this action could create resentment. Risk remains high, but the stone is too valuable to ignore. From her seat, Julie watches with tense eyes, clearly unwilling to back down. The opportunity feels rare enough that she cannot afford hesitation. Determination hardens inside Deculin as he prioritizes survival over reputation. Without changing his expression, he commits himself fully to securing the Snowflare stone. The auction hall reached its final moment as the host announced the last call, revealing that the snowflake stone had been sold for an enormous price. Deculin sat calmly among the guests, showing no outward reaction while the crowd buzzed with excitement over how intense the bidding had become. People around him praised his effort, assuming he had worked hard just to secure the item as a gift for his fiancée. Faye, a white-haired woman, lowered her head in frustration, remembering how Deculin had already seen what he wanted. Dark memories of last year resurfaced, reminding her of the repeated pain and disappointment she had experienced because of him. Deculin's confident behavior only deepened her bitterness, and she realized she could not endure the shame of standing in front of him any longer. The woman stared forward with sharp eyes, already knowing what she truly desired from Deculin, even if she could not admit it openly. Instead of accepting her feelings, she fled the room, destroying the engagement in a moment of emotional conflict and pride. Although she thought leaving would end everything, rumors spread quickly, claiming she had been abandoned, and people whispered that she had begged for Deculin but failed to keep him. It became obvious to her that someone was deliberately smearing her name. Anger tightened her fists as she convinced herself that she could never love a man who caused her such disgrace, no matter how hard she tried. Overcome by frustration, she suddenly moved as if to storm away again. The shock of seeing him so close made her pause, and the tension between them rose instantly as the room seemed to grow quiet. Deculin questioned her with cold precision, and her face twisted with anger as she struggled to respond, feeling insulted by his calm attitude. Inside the quiet auction hall, Deculin suddenly bowed his head and offered an unexpected apology, leaving the white-haired woman frozen in disbelief. Shock filled her expression as she struggled to understand why a man known for pride would lower himself without hesitation. Without waiting for a response, Deculin turned away and walked past her, formally excusing himself, while she remained standing in confusion. As she stepped outside, her thoughts raced, questioning whether his apology was related to the snowflake stone or something far more complicated. A carriage arrived, and Josephine, the eldest daughter of the frightened household, called out with calm authority and instructed her to enter. The night deepened as the vehicle departed the grand estate, carrying silent tension beneath the quiet city lights. From within his carriage, Deculin reflected on the unexpected outcome, recognizing that events had shifted in a way he had not predicted. Upon returning home, servants greeted him respectfully, unaware of the calculated thoughts forming behind his composed expression. A brief exchange with his staff hinted that something unusual had occurred, though Deculin revealed nothing openly. In an upper corridor, he was informed that Miss Uriel had returned, prompting him to change direction immediately. Moonlight stretched across the balcony as he approached her, observing her small figure standing alone in the cold glow. Uriel questioned the source of the funds he had used, pointing out that the money had originally been meant for the mines. Tension rose sharply when she accused him of acting recklessly, her voice trembling with restrained anger. Deculin sensed the seriousness of her frustration as she described the financial strain she had endured to stabilize their household. Despite her accusations, he maintained a controlled demeanor and assured her that his purchase would ultimately generate profit rather than loss. Red energy erupted violently as Uriel's anger manifested, accusing Deculin of recklessly gambling the money meant for the estate's stability. The force of her activated ability surged through the corridor, hurling Deculin backward, while he quickly realized her hidden power had been triggered. Even as the destructive aura intensified, he understood that surviving the attack was necessary because enduring it would secure far greater financial returns. Standing amid the swirling red currents, Deculin calculated the meaning of the situation and concluded that avoiding this confrontation would only delay inevitable consequences. Uriel confronted him with raw frustration, accusing him of ignoring her sacrifices and treating her struggles as insignificant. Rather than retaliate, he calmly declared his intention to give her the household head position, shocking her into stunned silence. Tears gathered in Uriel's eyes as she demanded clarification, unable to process whether his offer was sincere or another calculated move. Deculin repeated his promise without hesitation, formally stating that the authority of the household would belong to her. Overwhelmed by emotion, she reacted with disbelief and flustered denial, unable to reconcile his composed expression with such an unexpected concession. Still doubtful, Uriel demanded that he swear through a binding mage's oath, one that would punish him fatally if broken. Without retreating, Deculin agreed to the condition, maintaining an unwavering tone that only deepened her confusion. Despite his assurance, she warned him fiercely that betrayal would not be forgiven, revealing how fragile her trust had become. After venting her anger, Uriel stormed out of the room, leaving behind a heavy silence in the moonlit corridor. A system message appeared before Deculin's eyes, indicating that he had successfully altered the villain's predetermined fate. With the crisis settled for now, he acknowledged that transferring the household authority posed no disadvantage, since the outcome aligned perfectly with his larger strategy. Deculin leaned back beneath the moonlit window, reflecting that if he continued altering events one by one, he might eventually escape the doomed fate awaiting him. Before his thoughts could settle, a sudden presence interrupted the quiet room, signaling that someone had entered without warning. An unexpected female guest appeared from above, catching his attention immediately and disrupting the fragile calm he had just regained. The intruder observed him with sharp eyes, expressing shock not at his decision but at the fact that he had chosen Uriel as the household head. With measured words, she revealed a startling claim that Uriel did not possess true Eucline blood, implying a hidden truth about the family lineage. Confusion crossed Deculin's mind as he realized this revelation had never existed in the original game scenario, suggesting the future was diverging further from his expectations. In a quiet office, Deculin listens as a woman reports that Uriel does not share Eucline blood. The statement immediately creates tension in the room. He recalls that Uriel was supposed to become his half-sister, yet the new information makes her origin seem far more suspicious. Doubt forms in his mind. The realization strikes harder when he understands this fact was never mentioned before. Deculin senses that someone deliberately hid the truth. The woman asks if it is truly fine to ignore such an important issue. Instead of reacting with anger, he decides Uriel's identity should not be questioned openly. Her existence in the household remains meaningful. Surprised by his calm response, the woman promises to protect the secret recording. Deculin orders her to keep it hidden and controlled. Just before leaving, she stops and shares another warning. A dangerous criminal organization has started moving again. The name Six Snake Heads shocks Deculin, since they are feared across the continent. Their influence is linked to violence and massive bounties. He realizes their return could threaten noble estates and disrupt political balance. The woman explains they are after items purchased from the auction house. Deculin quickly connects the threat to his own residence. She warns him that even if delivery succeeds, the moment the goods arrive, an attack could follow. Suspicion grows around every detail. After she leaves, Deculin remains alone and frustrated by the growing complications. His calm expression hides rising pressure. He decides the truth about Uriel changes. Nothing. Deculin reminds himself he is not the original man, but must play the role. His thoughts settle on one conclusion: Uriel will always be treated as his sister. Blood is irrelevant compared to responsibility. With criminals moving and secrets surfacing, Deculin prepares for conflict. Determination replaces hesitation as the next crisis approaches. Under the moonlit sky, Deculin decides the truth about Uriel must remain hidden. He understands that revealing it would create unnecessary chaos and suspicion. Near a campfire, Deculin stays with a small group resting in the forest. The mood is calm, but he remains cautious and observant. After the brief gathering ends, the group prepares to return. Deculin silently accepts that secrets will follow him no matter where he goes. The party moves together through the woods, staying close and alert. Deculin warns them that everything they heard should remain confidential. A magic circle forms around them, and a teleportation spell activates. Light surrounds their bodies as the scenery begins to disappear. In an instant, the forest vanishes, and they are transported away. The sudden movement confirms that Deculin's preparations are fast and efficient. Back at the academy, Deculin sits in his office and begins analyzing the situation further. His mind shifts from survival concerns to long-term strategy. A strange system interface appears, revealing a system store that can strengthen his character. Deculin realizes this is an opportunity to gain power through progress. The system explains that only a few people can access it, and advancement depends on achievements. Deculin understands that growth is tied directly to action. He refuses to waste time and decides to focus on improving combat skills. Deculin reviews the gap between his strength and the level of notorious villains. Plans form quickly as he considers using training and resources more efficiently. A student arrives with urgent documents, interrupting his thoughts. After reading the paper, Deculin recognizes the information as serious. The report suggests that something dangerous is unfolding beyond the academy walls. He realizes the incident connects to the Six Snake Heads and their movements. Without hesitation, Deculin decides to act carefully but decisively. The hidden truth, rising criminals, and growing power all begin to collide at once. Inside the ornate office, Decoline suddenly turns toward Alan and asks if he intends to become an assistant professor. The unexpected question makes the atmosphere tense. Alan hesitates, unsure how to respond. A sharp surge of magical energy flashes nearby, making the moment feel even heavier. A loud disturbance echoes through the academy tower, shaking the surroundings. Alan's eyes widen as he realizes this situation is far more serious than he expected. Confusion spreads across Alan's face as he questions the offer. Being told before that he lacked talent makes him doubt Deculin's intentions. Deculin dismisses the uncertainty and focuses on Alan's results. Instead, he states that Alan's research performance was excellent, and hands him a Eucline engraved bangle. Gratitude overwhelms Alan as he accepts the gift with trembling hands. Without wasting time, Deculin orders him to keep working hard and improve further. While watching him, Deculin reflects that Alan never stopped trying even after repeated failure. That persistence becomes the reason he chooses to support him. Extra money is added as Deculin tells Alan to leave early and buy dinner. The gesture is strict, yet it shows quiet consideration. After Alan leaves, Deculin sits alone and shows brief exhaustion. Silence fills the office as he prepares for the next task. Later, Deculin enters the staff-only library because of Luna's paper. His goal is to study theories about pure elements. Reading the document reveals flaws and missing explanations. Determined to fix the gaps, he searches for grimoires related to manipulation magic. A faint presence interrupts his thoughts while he walks between shelves. Instinctively, Deculin becomes alert. He turns sharply and questions why someone is inside the restricted library. Authority fills his calm voice. Recognition follows when he notices the blonde student holding a book. The intruder is debutant Sylvia. Sylvia freezes in shock after being discovered. The quiet library grows tense as their unexpected meeting begins. 10 minutes earlier, Sylvia received conditional approval to enter the executive reading room, a space normally restricted to high-ranking officials and senior staff members. Since her visit was strictly for academic research, the restriction was relaxed, and the exclusivity of the chamber was temporarily disregarded. With quiet determination, she stepped into the grand library hall, unaware that this rare access would soon lead to an unexpected encounter. Motivated by her deep interest in literature and languages, Sylvia searched the tall shelves for a book that met both rarity and scholarly value. Eventually, she discovered a novel written entirely in Eternal, a language that had grown increasingly precious after the disappearance of the fairies. Rising on her toes to reach the high shelf, she focused only on retrieving the volume, not noticing another presence entering the room. Suddenly, Deculin appeared before her, questioning why she stood inside the executive reading room without hesitation. His sharp gaze unsettled her, especially because he was known to show little interest in library matters. Regaining composure, Sylvia clarified that she had obtained formal permission to search for specific research materials. Deculin replied sternly that such authorization would not prevent consequences for those responsible if regulations were ignored. Noticing the Eternal novel in her hands, he briefly assessed its rarity and linguistic importance. After acknowledging its nature, he returned it without praise, maintaining his composed and distant demeanor. Turning away, he remarked that others should handle book retrieval in the future, subtly diminishing her effort. Embarrassment and frustration replaced her earlier excitement as she absorbed the weight of his cold dismissal. Despite the sting, Sylvia resolved to continue studying Eternal, determined to overcome its difficulty through persistence. A group advanced along a forest path toward the Mountain of Darkness, a region notorious for unstable grounds and dangerous magical disturbances. Explanations described the mountain as a place filled with condensed mana, rare flora, and unpredictable phenomena caused by lingering magical residue. Deculin listened calmly as the objective was outlined, accepting the responsibility placed upon him to investigate the abnormal activity. After delegating preparations to his subordinate, Deculin stood beneath the darkened sky while a title announced the stage as the Mountain of Darkness. Moments later, violent magical energy erupted within the forest, forcing him to brace himself against a sudden and overwhelming surge. Recognizing the intensity of the disturbance, he concluded that immediate entry into the forest's interior was unavoidable. Elsewhere, a peaceful café gathering unfolded as desserts were served, creating a relaxed atmosphere among the students. Laughter and casual conversation filled the evening air, contrasting sharply with the ominous events unfolding at the mountain. Without warning, a heavy impact shattered the calm, drawing alarmed reactions from those nearby. A loud disturbance echoed through the area, prompting several individuals to rush toward the source of the commotion. Panic spread as someone stumbled and cried out for assistance, struggling to maintain balance amid confusion. Suddenly, an unseen force seized hold of one figure, dragging them away despite desperate attempts to resist. In the aftermath, disorientation overwhelmed the victim as the surroundings shifted into an unfamiliar and darkened space. Separated from the lively street moments earlier, the individual found themselves lying on cold ground within an unknown location. Confusion deepened as reality seemed distorted, marking the beginning of a far more dangerous ordeal. In the dark forest, the silver-haired girl called for help after realizing she had been dragged into an unfamiliar and dangerous area. As she rushed forward, a sudden attack struck nearby, and she discovered someone collapsed on the ground in severe condition. Before she could react properly, a violent force burst out again, making her understand that something hostile was actively hunting them. Instinctively, she gathered mana and formed a spell, preparing herself for another assault while fear tightened her breathing. Footsteps echoed through the mist, and Deculine appeared, immediately shifting the situation from helpless panic into tense control. Seeing him arrive, the girl froze in shock, realizing the person she least expected was now standing in the same terrifying place. She accused him of attacking a civilian, unable to accept what she had witnessed moments earlier in the chaos. Deculine corrected her quickly, pointing out that the target was not human, and forced her to confront the truth. A demonic creature revealed itself, its twisted body and monstrous roar confirming that the forest had become a hunting ground. Deculine ordered her not to interfere, treating the situation as a controlled threat rather than a sudden disaster. The creature lunged violently, striking through the darkness, and the girl barely avoided being overwhelmed by its speed. After pushing her aside, Deculine advanced without hesitation, preparing to engage the monster directly. With sharp focus, Deculine admitted he was irritated because he had lost his prey, turning the battle into a personal pursuit. A surge of destructive magic erupted from his hand, slicing through the night and tearing into the demon's body. The monster screamed as it was struck repeatedly, proving that Deculine had shifted from defense into a ruthless hunt. Deculine advanced toward the demon with controlled steps, his earlier strike forcing the creature backward while fragments of mana floated sharply around him. Observing the demon's reaction, he sensed its rage intensifying as his lineage stirred violently in response to the presence of a true demonic being. Heat surged through his body, and his blood boiled with hostility, signaling that the Eucline attribute had activated beyond ordinary restraint. An overwhelming aura manifested around Deculine, embodying the inherited hatred toward demons that defined his family's ancient legacy. Driven by this force, he refused to allow the demon any opportunity to recover, pressing forward with precise and relentless attacks. Scarlet energy descended like a vertical strike, crashing down upon the demon and tearing through its resistance without hesitation. When the violent surge subsided, the forest fell silent, and the demon's body lay broken beneath the fading glow of magic. Deculine remained standing, as the notifications of gained attributes and achievements confirmed the successful elimination of the threat. Under the dim moonlight, he evaluated the aftermath calmly, recognizing that the encounter had revealed a deeper reaction within his own power. Morning light spread across the academy towers as Ephraim slowly opened her eyes inside a quiet clinic room. Disoriented and struggling to understand her surroundings, confusion tightened her expression as fragments of the forest resurfaced, yet her body felt heavy, and the nurse beside her calmly observed her unstable condition. Memories of collapsing in the mountain of darkness lingered faintly, but the explanation that she had been rescued and treated left her unsettled rather than relieved. A vivid recollection surfaced of a grotesque demon emerging from the shadows, its overwhelming presence crushing her senses before everything turned black. Information followed that the mountain had been sealed due to the demon's appearance. Resentment crossed her face upon learning that Professor Deculine was responsible for saving her. Seeking clarity, she asked about the date and calculated the lost time, realizing she had been unconscious for over a day. The large clock confirmed it was Wednesday, and the realization struck her with sudden urgency as her thoughts raced toward her schedule. Panic replaced confusion when she understood she was late, prompting her to rush from the clinic toward the academy building without hesitation. Breathless, Ephraim pushed open the classroom door, drawing the attention of several students who turned toward her sudden arrival. Relief appeared briefly as she confirmed she had not completely missed the session. Whispers circulated about a special lesson, and uncertainty returned as she tried to grasp what important event she had nearly overlooked. Inside the lecture hall, Professor Deculine stood firmly at the podium while a young male student waited beside him carrying documents. Ephraim quietly took her seat, sensing the curious glances of classmates who wondered about her recent absence and sudden entrance. The announcement revealed the boy as Deculine's teaching assistant. Whispers filled the classroom as Ephraim learned that serving as a teaching assistant granted direct participation in grading evaluations, something Professor Deculine would never allow lightly. Light streamed through the doorway while Deculine entered with composed authority, reinforcing the belief that his decisions always carried deliberate reasoning beyond public understanding. Realization struck Ephorine that her father had remained only a researcher for decades, never promoted, making the professor's sudden choice feel even more suspicious. The lecture began with a formal announcement that the session would test practical ability, requiring every student to solve assigned tasks within 3 hours. Timers were distributed across the hall, and the atmosphere tightened as pressure settled over the students facing Deculaline's strict standards. Ephorine touched the green bracelet inherited from her father, questioning his unresolved relationship with Deculine while forcing herself to concentrate. Determination replaced doubt as she focused on constructing a spell, pushing distracting thoughts aside, despite lingering frustration. Minutes passed quickly before she completed her magic in barely over 20 minutes, astonishing nearby classmates who struggled to stabilize their formulas. Deculine observed silently, then permitted her to leave, signaling measured approval without unnecessary praise. At another desk, Julia refined her own spell with steady precision, golden light forming controlled patterns above her workspace. A brief exchange of glances passed between Julia and Ephorine, revealing competitive awareness rather than open hostility. Despite outward calm, Ephorine felt renewed urgency as others continued casting, unwilling to appear inferior before the professor. Sunlight shifted across the academy exterior while names were dismissed one by one as students successfully finished their tasks. When Ephorine's turn concluded, confirmation came that 3 full hours had passed, marking the official end of the examination. Left alone with lingering doubt about Deculine's intentions and her father's past, she sensed that today's lessons signaled deeper complications ahead. Ephorine collapsed over her desk after the exam ended, desperately trying to form a proper spell, but her thoughts scattered as frustration overwhelmed her. Humiliation grew when she realized she was the only student who failed to finish on time, making her feel weaker than everyone else in the room. Self-blame consumed her as she compared herself to others, like Sylvia, believing she had no right to compete at the academy. Time dragged on until Ephorine noticed Deculine was still present, calmly waiting, while the classroom became emptier and colder. Shock struck her when he addressed her directly, forcing her to stand and acknowledge her failure despite wanting to disappear. Trembling with shame, she admitted she could not complete the task. Knowing the professor had witnessed her breakdown, Deculine approached without hesitation, stating that mockery from others should never matter if she remained in control of herself. His words cut deeper as he reminded her that the person she resented most was standing right in front of her, making her emotions harder to hide. Cold discipline followed, as he demanded she stay calm and logical, implying that emotional weakness would always limit her growth. Deculine declared that she would never reach his level with such a fragile mindset, leaving her frozen in place under his judgment. Disappointment was clear in his expression as he turned away, claiming he had expected more from her abilities. After he left the room, silence remained, and Ephorine stood alone, absorbing the harsh evaluation without anyone offering comfort. The ticking clock echoed through the empty classroom as Ephorine slammed her fists down, releasing pent-up anger and shame. His final words, repeated in her mind, and the memory of his cold gaze made her grip tighten until her bracelet pressed into her skin. A new resolve formed as she lifted her head, deciding that failure would not end her path, no matter how much it hurt. Ephorine steadied her breathing and activated her mana, forcing energy to gather around her hands despite lingering frustration and the weight of recent humiliation. Green light intensified as she compressed the unstable flow into a controlled structure, refusing to let doubt interrupt the formation of her spell. Determination overtook hesitation, and the surge of magic expanded outward, signaling her decision to surpass expectations through sheer persistence. Deculine stood before the green-lit window, arms folded, reflecting on the 6 hours he devoted to guiding Ephorine's growth. Awareness of the demon on the mountain of darkness sharpened his resolve, since the approaching main quest would soon disturb the fragile balance within the academy. Confidence in his own control over events suppressed any doubt, even while acknowledging that excessive growth in Ephorine could eventually create future complications. Ephorine trained under violent surges of mana, her body strained as luminous energy burst outward during controlled spell execution supervised from afar. Observation revealed clear technical flaws beneath her talent, proving she still lacked refinement compared to formal academy graduates accustomed to structured magical discipline. Determination hardened within Deculine as he resolved to correct those weaknesses personally, trusting only his own methods to shape her survival. Exhaustion weighed on Ephorine as she staggered through the corridor, steadying herself against the wall after completing the assigned task. Deculine watched silently from the shadows, analyzing her physical limits and mental endurance without offering visible approval, Sudden magical resonance pulsed through the building, drawing his gaze toward a distant glow forming within the dark interior. Completion of the assignment was calculated precisely at 6 hours and 25 minutes. The chamber illuminated by faint drifting mana. Review of the written thesis exposed innate structural flaws, yet its competitive quality suggested potential worthy of measured acknowledgement. System confirmation appeared as a completed side quest reward, granting minor currency while leaving his composed expression unchanged. Night settled over the grand castle as Deculent proceeded toward his residence after ensuring Ephorine's safe return. A tall silver-haired man approached with exaggerated familiarity, halting his steps within the quiet courtyard. Recognition of Zeit triggered suspicion in Deculane's sharp gaze, as the timing of this encounter implied hidden intent. Zeit von Bruggen-Frieden was revealed as the head of the Frieden household, holding authority that extended far beyond ordinary noble influence. His name was closely linked to Julie's family and Deculen's forced engagement. Connections between Zeit and imperial affairs made him a figure Deculane could not treat lightly. Every detail about his position suggested that interfering with him could lead to serious consequences. Dark suspicion formed as Deculane considered Zeit's arrival to be more than coincidence. With a broad smile, Zeit approached Deculane as if they were longtime friends. Calm behavior hid Deculane's discomfort, but his sharp gaze showed he did not trust the man. Rumors about Julie and Deculane were quickly brought up, revealing that private matters had already spread. Zeit's casual tone carried pressure, making the conversation feel like a hidden interrogation. Dinner was proposed immediately, leaving no space for Deculane to refuse naturally. Acceptance became the safest option, even if the invitation seemed suspicious. A heavy hand landed on Deculane's shoulder, reinforcing Zeit's dominance without using threats. Satisfied by the quick agreement, Zeit turned away and left without hesitation. The sudden departure made it clear that he never intended to negotiate. Silence followed as Deculane remained behind, realizing the trap had been set perfectly. Cold realization struck Deculane as he admitted Zeit had arranged everything in advance. Memories of Zeit's loyalty to his household reminded Deculane that retaliation was always possible. Despite strong doubt, Deculane concluded that canceling the dinner would be more risky than attending. Preparation became his only option as he planned for possible conflict. Morning arrived at the Frieden estate, where Julie openly rejected the idea of meeting Deculane. Anger filled her expression, showing she viewed the engagement as a burden. Training was used as an excuse, as Julie claimed she had no time to waste on him. Zeit challenged her response, treating her resistance as immature and emotional. From a distance, a hidden observer watched the argument without stepping forward. Julie argued fiercely in the courtyard, demanding to know why marriage should depend on whether she could still wield a sword. Her voice carried wounded pride and frustration. Defiance strengthened her expression as she insisted she would end the engagement herself rather than accept unfair assumptions. Tears gathered, but her posture remained unbent. A crushing aura erupted from Zeit, silencing the space between them. His warning forced Julie to restrain her emotions before the conflict escalated further. Under the dark sky, Zeit held her firmly and reminded her that nobles must separate feelings from political duty. His authority overshadowed her resistance. Accusations about hidden affection were dismissed immediately, as Julie denied loving anyone or acting out of jealousy. Pride prevented her from appearing weak. Instructions to attend the arranged dinner were delivered with finality. Though dissatisfied, she gave no further protest. Morning arrived at the training grounds where Julie faced Voron across the open field. Determination replaced last night's anger. Blue mana surged as she attacked with force, driving her blade toward him in a swift arc. Voron blocked smoothly, without losing balance. Sparks scattered when their weapons collided, and Julie stepped back after the exchange ended. Her breathing grew uneven from the effort. Voron calmly observed that her sword lacked stability, his critique focused on discipline rather than strength. Formal introduction followed, as he identified himself as her subordinate knight. Respect guided his composed stance. Apology escaped Julie's lips for her unstable performance. Understanding replaced criticism in Voron's steady gaze. Concern emerged as Voron questioned the engagement's fairness. His loyalty appeared protective. Sharp interruption from Julie stopped him from speaking further. She refused to let him criticize Deculane directly. Confidence returned as she declared she could manage alone. Strength replaced doubt in her expression. Silence surrounded Voron as he observed Julie walking away from the training grounds, his red eyes revealing restrained emotion beneath disciplined composure. Duty kept his posture straight despite inner turmoil. Lingering alone in the courtyard, he lowered his head and allowed his thoughts to settle into a firm decision. Distance grew between them while he fixed his gaze on her retreating figure, silently reaffirming his loyalty. Elsewhere, Julie reflected on her lingering anguish and convinced herself that proving loyalty required decisive action. Acceptance hardened her expression as she embraced personal responsibility. Kneeling beneath the night sky, Varen gripped his sword with solemn focus, aware that his choice would carry consequences. Meanwhile, Deculin walked calmly across the academy grounds, unaware that unseen intentions were already moving around him. Birchtit's tall tower stood under the night sky as rumors spread that a demon had appeared near the Mountain of Darkness. Inside the assembly, the elders treated the report seriously and accepted that the situation could no longer be ignored. A formal letter was prepared, ordering the 12 sorcerers to respond to Birch summons as soon as possible. In the daylight, Deculin reviewed the auction results and confirmed he had secured most of the items he needed. He examined Kuprian's ring for mana recovery and the ancient rune necklace for storing mana, planning to keep them protected. Even with those preparations, worry grew when the Frostflame stone failed to react the way he expected. Standing near the vault, Deculin attempted to move the Frostflame stone with telekinesis, but it remained completely still. No matter how much mana he used, the crystal resisted, as if it was blocking his magic on purpose. The situation made him realize the stone might not be controlled through normal magical force alone. While staring at the shining surface, Deculin remembered reading something important earlier in the library. The text explained that powerful weapons required a process called communion, meaning the user must gain acceptance from the artifact. That idea made him suspect the Frostflame stone demanded understanding instead of pressure. With careful focus, Deculin extended his hand and slowly released mana in a controlled flow toward the crystal. Blue light surged violently, wrapping around him as the stone reacted, showing resistance but also a faint response. When the energy weakened slightly, he understood the stone could be mastered, but only through patience and disciplined control. Deculin checked his schedule and confirmed that this was the best time to begin preparing for an important event. He reviewed the dinner invitation arranged for the day, carefully studying the details to avoid making any mistake. While examining the documents, he noticed another event marked 3 days later, the death anniversary, which added pressure to his plans. At sunset, Deculin arrived at Restaurant von Meschel, a luxurious place filled with noble atmosphere and strict etiquette. He entered calmly and assumed Julie had already arrived, expecting the meeting to proceed without complications. Soon, he spotted Julie waiting inside, and her elegant appearance immediately stood out in the refined setting. Deculin paused briefly, surprised by how different Julie looked compared to his usual memory of her. Nearby nobles noticed her beauty as well, and the attention around the hall quietly shifted toward her presence. Although Deculin tried to remain composed, the situation made him realize the meeting might not stay simple. As he adjusted himself, Deculin reflected that he had been drawn to Julie for a long time, yet he did not expect to meet her here. His thoughts changed when another woman appeared, and he recognized her immediately as Josephine. He understood Josephine was not only Julie's sister, but also someone dangerous enough to demand constant caution. Josephine's presence filled the room with tension, showing that she was a person who achieved goals through ruthless methods. Her background as a leader of an underground intelligence network made her far more threatening than an ordinary noble. Even without understanding why, Deculin felt an instinctive warning the moment Josephine entered, realizing this meeting could turn into a serious risk. From across the table, Deculin studied Josephine, and recognized her as the dangerous variable intertwined with the villain's predetermined fate. Awareness of her sociopathic reputation and hidden influence made the entire engagement discussion feel unstable and threatening. Determination formed within him as he resolved to treat Julie's future carefully and correct the careless distance he once maintained. Across the ornate dining hall, Josephine maintained a composed posture, her sharp eyes evaluating Deculin without hesitations. Silence lingered heavily between them, creating tension that suggested she already held doubts about his sincerity. With steady composure, Deculin announced that the engagement would remain entirely Julie's choice, even if that meant dissolving it. Immediate reactions from the family revealed shock and disapproval, as elders viewed his statement as reckless and irresponsible. Subtle accusations followed, implying that his recent emotional distance had damaged the relationship beyond repair. Mention of the family head deepened the gravity of the matter, reminding everyone that pride and authority stood behind this union. Seeking control of the situation, Josephine requested a private discussion, effectively shifting the atmosphere of the gathering. After the others stepped away, Deculin remained seated, carefully observing her movements and calculating possible outcomes. Suspicion sharpened in his expression as he questioned her true motive behind isolating him from the rest. Behind her calm exterior, Josephine revealed a colder presence, suggesting her intentions were far from innocent. Holding her glass casually, She treated the conversation like a strategic exchange where she possessed the upper hand. Caution guided Deculane's thoughts as he prepared for whatever demand she intended to present. Next. Inside the grand dining hall, Deculane faced Julie across the table, keeping a controlled expression despite the tension that filled the room. A sharp awareness struck him as he sensed another presence nearby, making him realize their meeting was not as private as it appeared. Hidden behind the door, Josephine listened carefully, turning every small detail of the conversation into information she could later use. Josephine maintained a quiet stance while observing, acting as though she had no interest, yet clearly judging Deculane's behavior toward Julie. Rather than reacting with fear, Deculane viewed the situation as a chance to shift the balance in his favor and create a better outcome. A careful strategy formed as he decided that convincing Josephine of his feelings for Julie might reduce the threats closing in around him. With a steady tone, Deculane began speaking seriously, knowing Julie would not accept his intentions without doubt or resistance. Julie remained silent, her expression heavy with distrust, showing that past events had already damaged whatever connection they once had. The situation worsened when she stated their engagement could not be dissolved. Anger finally surfaced as Julie questioned his motives, believing he was preparing another cruel attempt to corner and disgrace her. Memories of the forced engagement poured out as she reminded him how he used his power and demanded he explain his true purpose. Her voice rose with sharp resentment, proving she was no longer willing to tolerate Deculane's influence or his cold reputation. Julie slammed her fists down, accusing Deculane of blocking her path and destroying her chances of joining the Imperial Order. Hatred burned in her eyes as she claimed he spread rumors and asked if he intended to start another fight against her. Deculane responded calmly, revealing he already knew every detail. A dark recollection surfaced as Deculane reflected on his past obsession, remembering how his twisted fixation left Julie with no safe path to escape. Scenes of destruction followed in his thoughts, revealing how he had stripped away her choices until remaining beside him became her only option. Acknowledging those unforgivable acts, Deculane accepted that Julie's hatred was justified and heavier than anyone else could truly understand. Julie sat rigidly at the table, anger tightening her expression as she rejected the idea that his sudden change of attitude meant anything sincere. Across from her, Deculane admitted he had wronged her, lowering his gaze slightly while maintaining a steady and controlled demeanor. Shock flickered in Julie's eyes when he added that she was not the only one at fault, suggesting their families had also pushed matters too far. Silence lingered between them before Deculane calmly questioned whether the engagement had truly been about reputation alone. Instead of answering immediately, Julie hesitated as uncertainty crept into her expression for the first time. Carefully cutting into his meal, Deculane shifted the subject toward her abandoned dream, exposing the sacrifice she had been forced to make. A vision of Julie in armor appeared in contrast to her present self, reminding her of the defender she once aspired to become. Her composure cracked as she realized Deculane knew about the Imperial Order and the pressure placed upon her to give it up. Leaning forward slightly, Deculane declared himself unworthy of her ideals, admitting he lacked the virtues she valued most. He then revealed his intention to maintain their engagement only in name, offering her freedom while shielding her from political backlash. Confusion overtook Julie as he promised to support her ambitions quietly. Though he claimed to expect nothing, a faint trace of hope lingered in his expression, leaving Julie uncertain about his true purpose. Leaning back with calm confidence, Deculane told Julie that all he wanted was to see her smile once every month, as if the request required no effort. Shock immediately spread across Julie's face, and her body stiffened as she struggled to process how such a strange demand could come from him. Confusion also appeared among the people nearby, while Julie's widened eyes showed that she could no longer understand what Deculane was truly aiming for. In Deculane's mind, the decision felt logical, since he believed those words were the safest way to reduce the dangerous variables surrounding his fate. Even with that cold reasoning, Julie's flustered reaction drew his attention. A quiet shift occurred as Deculane admitted that her sincerity looked real. Trying to protect herself, Julie quickly denied his intentions and acted defensive. Deculane observed her closely and realized that the affection he once treated as meaningless was slowly beginning to feel genuine within him. Nervous movements followed as Julie insisted she would not fall for his schemes, though her shaken posture revealed she was already affected. Instead of ending the discussion, Deculane decided to continue watching Julie, believing her reactions could confirm whether his plan was truly working. A system-like notice appeared, showing that a death variable had been avoided and a reward gained, proving that the path of survival was shifting. 3 days later, Deculin traveled inside a carriage and recognized that the approaching death anniversary would soon test every step he made. Golden evening light covered the cemetery as Deculin walked alone between rows of graves, surrounded by silence and distant wind. Unease settled in his chest as weeds moved gently, and the atmosphere felt heavy even under the warm sunset sky. Cracked tombstones reflected the fading sunlight, and Deculin sensed that this place marked the beginning of the danger he could not avoid. Stepping onto the cemetery path, Deculin felt memories surface before his body could steady itself, as if the place recognized him first. Standing before a grave bathed in sunset light, he understood this land carried memories not of Deculin's life, but of Kim Woojin's past. Facing the tombstone in silence, he acknowledged that the emotions rising within him belonged to another identity he could never fully erase. Deculin stood inside the office, holding a cup while his team discussed inserting an Easter egg into the game's structure. A female colleague explained that the hidden detail would enrich the background and strengthen immersion for players. Although he responded with indifference, Deculin observed the seriousness behind her proposal. The idea unsettled him more than he expected. Later, he walked ahead carrying drinks as she continued defending the concept confidently. His dismissive attitude created distance between them. She maintained that even small additions could hold emotional weight within a story. Determination showed clearly in her expression. Hearing her persistence reminded Deculin of Era's past enthusiasm whenever she developed new ideas. The memory resurfaced without warning. As they moved through the hallway, she questioned whether the drinks were meant for other team members. Her remark implied that he was more considerate than he appeared. Deculin's thoughts shifted inward toward Kim Woojin's buried memories. Recovering those traces became increasingly important to him. Uncertainty formed as he wondered whether Ara's past actions were thoughtful or intentionally cruel. The doubt deepened his inner conflict. A tombstone engraved with Yuorea's name came into view, accompanied by a message expressing gratitude. The inscription felt deliberate. Standing before it, Deculin recalled that his character had been modeled after Kim Woojin. The connection disturbed him. Realization followed that Era's name had been used for the villain's deceased fiancée. The overlap between fiction and reality weighed heavily. He examined the carved words again, searching for hidden meaning. Doubt persisted. Kneeling beside the grave, Deculin placed his hand against the stone. Emotion replaced composure. A single message unsettled his entire being. Silence confirmed how deeply it affected him. Deculin knelt near the tombstone, feeling as if Era's presence was still lingering around him. Her memory returned in fragments, pulling him into the past. Scenes of Era spending years beside him replayed clearly, showing her support during quiet moments and difficult times. The warmth of those days contrasted sharply with his current loneliness. While his emotions surged, Deculin realized these memories were not meaningless dreams. They were proof that Era once shaped his life completely. A tear slipped down Deculin's face as he remained bent near the grave. The reality of losing her became heavier with every second. Behind him, movement appeared in the distance, and footsteps approached through the cemetery. The peaceful atmosphere suddenly felt unstable. A white-haired man emerged with a twisted expression, clearly filled with hatred. His presence signaled danger, breaking Deculin's moment of grief. The sky glowed with evening light as Deculin slowly regained control of his breathing. He turned and recognized the approaching figure as someone familiar. The realization created tension, as the stranger's aura carried hostility. Dark energy gathered around the man, revealing him as Lockhart. The threat became obvious as the man prepared to attack without hesitation. Lockhart's rage exploded as he accused Deculin of being responsible for his suffering. His eyes burned with obsession and violent intent. Deculin stayed calm and analyzed the situation quickly. Realizing Lockhart was a villain specialized in hunting mages, power surged around Lockhart as he activated his attribute, showing unnatural strength. Lockhart launched forward, his movements fast and aggressive, while dark energy surrounded his body. Deculin watched closely, searching for a weakness. A shocking limitation became clear as magic could not be used within Lockhart's range. This forced Deculin into a dangerous close battle. Lockhart struck Deculin violently, laughing as he confirmed his immunity to magic. With violent momentum, Lockhart drove Deculin across the ground, striking him repeatedly while relying on his anti-magic attribute. Each impact showed his confidence in nullifying spells completely. Rather than panic, Deculin analyzed the pattern behind the assault, recognizing that magic would remain useless within his opponent's effective range. Through clenched endurance, he concluded that only physical capability could bypass the restriction imposed by Lockhart's power. A brief imbalance followed Lockhart's reckless charge, yet arrogance still filled his expression as he dismissed any magical resistance. Standing firm despite visible injuries, Deculon measured distance and timing with calculated restraint. Anger distorted Lockhart's face, but Deculon's steady gaze revealed that he had already shifted to a different strategy. Memories of previous preparations surfaced, including deliberate investments in strengthening mana control and reinforcing his physique. Through systematic enhancement, his body had surpassed ordinary limits, transforming accumulated resources into permanent growth. Realization settled in that these improvements extended beyond spellcasting, granting him broader combat adaptability. When Lockhart attacked again, precise footwork allowed Deculon to intercept the strike without relying on magic. A controlled counter followed immediately, driving Lockhart backward with unexpected force. Shock replaced certainty as the anti-magic advantage failed to prevent direct physical retaliation. Energy coursed across Deculon's frame, amplifying inherent strength instead of forming a spell. Too late. Lockhart understood that nullification did not erase natural enhancement. While furious accusations spilled from the fallen attacker, Deculon remained composed, proving superiority without casting a single spell. Deculon stood calmly beneath the dark sky, recognizing Lockhart's unique nullification ability as powerful enough to be considered unfair, yet driven entirely by hatred toward mages. Observing Lockhart's furious expression, Deculon identified the intensity of his resentment and connected it to deeper apostate beliefs within the Red Pillar faction. As Lockhart struggled to comprehend the reversal, Deculon remained composed, silently asserting dominance while the distance between them widened across the forest path. The Bloodshroud race was known as a hidden lineage wrapped in blood-red power, descended from demons of ancient times. Across the continent, they survived by hiding their identities, while mages existed as forces created to destroy demonic beings. Because of that imbalance, the war between mages and Bloodshrouds became one of the most important conflicts shaping the world's history. At sunset, Deculon stood tall before Lockhart, who remained on the ground, exhausted and restrained by tension. Anger burned in Lockhart as he described how his people were condemned and hunted simply because of their ancestry. Without showing pity, Deculon listened carefully, already aware that this hatred could easily lead to pointless bloodshed. Deculon warned that murdering innocent mages would only make Lockhart no different from the monsters he despised. Fury erupted from Lockhart, and he shouted for death, convinced that no mage could ever understand the suffering of his race. Instead of reacting, Deculon stated that the Bloodshroud race was also innocent, causing Lockhart to freeze in disbelief. Introducing himself with authority, Deculon revealed that he was Euclid's Deculon, a noble who had not lost his pride. Lockhart mocked him and assumed this was only arrogance before an execution, refusing to trust his calm attitude. Rather than deny weakness, Deculon admitted his greatest shame was failing to defeat a demon when it truly mattered. For centuries, the Euclid bloodline had hunted demons, forming instincts that flared when demonic presence appeared. Unease entered Lockhart's thoughts as he questioned whether his rage had been influenced by those inherited instincts. As the tension settled, Deculon's control forced Lockhart to reconsider his hatred, hinting the true enemy might be something deeper. Lockhart stared at Deculon in disbelief, realizing that the mage standing over him was not acting with cruelty but with calm authority and restraint. A sudden shout broke the moment, and guards rushed toward the scene, forcing Deculon to react quickly before the situation turned into an execution. Without hesitation, Deculon struck Lockhart down and ordered him to stay still. Inspector Ropa arrived with confidence, saluting and praising Deculon as if he had successfully subdued a dangerous criminal without trouble. Lockhart screamed in humiliation, but the inspector ignored him, treating the Bloodshroud as nothing more than a captured enemy. Blue magical energy formed in the air as restraints were summoned, sealing Lockhart's movement with a powerful force meant to prevent escape. Ropa admired the restraint, realizing it was not ordinary magic, but a specialized tool designed to neutralize spells and suppress magical power completely. While the inspector continued praising Deculon, the young noble calmly explained that he had only been patrolling when the incident occurred. After confirming the report was not made by Deculon, the inspector dismissed the matter and left, believing the situation had been resolved. Night settled across the forest, and Deculon walked alone, relieved that the encounter ended without bloodshed or unnecessary violence. Cold thoughts followed him as he reflected on Lockhart's desperate state. Under the moonlight, Deculon admitted to himself that he never wanted to hurt anyone, yet survival forced him to act with harsh precision. The next day arrived at the Euclid estate, where Deculon received news that a meeting in Birched was being held for the first time in years. Inside the training room, he examined a parchment delivered by a servant. A major quest was announced, and Deku listened that the coming mission would involve mages gathering again to face a threat returning from the shadows. Inside the training room, Dekulin reviewed his departure schedule, while his aide suggested adding 2 guards for the upcoming journey to Birched. Concern lingered in her voice as she insisted he should not travel unprotected, even mentioning a former mercenary as a possible escort. Confidence defined Dekulin's response, as he dismissed the need for extra protection, and claimed he understood his own capabilities well enough. A warning followed that the road to Birched was dangerous, and survival there could never be guaranteed. Rather than show fear, Dekulin remained composed, subtly questioning whether her concern was professional duty or personal worry. Embarrassment briefly softened her strict demeanor before she declared she would handle the guard arrangements herself. At the order of Freeheim's post, knights trained fiercely under sharp commands, their discipline echoing across the yard. The vice-captain maintained strict focus among the soldiers, pushing them to improve without hesitation. Nearby, an older officer hesitated in thought, troubled by a commission that demanded careful consideration. In a quiet corridor, a black-haired man with red eyes approached silently, unsettling the officer with his sudden presence. Nervous explanation followed as the officer admitted a major commission had arrived, though doubts remained about accepting it. Before uncertainty could spread further, the silent knight stepped forward and declared the commission directly. The task was revealed as guarding Dekulin, though the scale expanded to protecting an entire train. Arguments arose about resources and risks, but the knight reasoned that success would raise the order's reputation immediately. Firm refusal ended the debate, as he rejected proceeding without clear approval from both the captain and Dekulin. The officer awkwardly insisted that their captain would never allow personal feelings to influence an official mission, attempting to justify the proposal with forced confidence. Without arguing further, the black-haired knight turned down the corridor, deciding to report the matter directly to the captain for confirmation. Under a darkened sky, his red eyes sharpened with silent resolve, revealing deeper thoughts hidden behind his calm expression. High in the northern continent, the city of Birched stands above 5,000 meters, where elders of the Magic Tower gather to decide the direction of sorcery. Within the tower, critical decisions are finalized, shaping not only the continent but also the floating island governed by mages for generations. Among those summoned to the rare assembly is a mage attending for the first time, recognizing that such an honor confirms acknowledged status in the magical world. A blue summoning circle activates as a young man materializes beneath glowing formulas, marking Birched call known as the Mage's Grave. Light fades to reveal Dekulin, composed and silent, understanding that this summons signifies recognition, yet also places him under scrutiny. Soon after, a train arrives at Birched platform, where robed figures and attendants prepare to receive distinguished guests from distant regions. Snow covers the northern station as a professor and his young companion step forward, acknowledging the harsh climate despite the spring season. Gratitude is expressed for the journey, while arrangements for escort and protection are confirmed to ensure a secure and comfortable stay. The young guard struggles internally when teased about smiling, forcing herself to maintain composure despite clear embarrassment. Inside her thoughts, uncertainty grows as she debates how to respond properly, questioning the correct expression required for dignity. Even while disliking the situation, she resolves to endure the discomfort for the captain she respects. Meanwhile, a firm step interrupts the tension as another presence approaches with authority. A man identifying himself as Veron formally announces his assignment to guard duty during this significant gathering. Standing tall in a dark coat, Dekulin observes silently, his calm demeanor reinforcing his reputation within the order. Respect is affirmed openly as officials emphasize that Dekulin's recognized skill leaves no doubt about his qualification for this important duty. At the station, a man observes the escort group and is recognized as a skilled individual, though his presence is evaluated carefully. A sharp-eyed mage secretly checks him for hidden magical energy, but senses nothing unusual and wonders if suspicion is unnecessary. Dekulin remains calm during the inspection, giving no reaction, which only increases the tension around his reputation. The escort system is explained, assigning each mage their own cabin, and confirming that the professor will be placed under careful protection. After responsibilities are handed over, the professor and his companion prepare to depart, while Dekulin's group stands ready to leave. The departing figures walk away down the platform, leaving the remaining guards and attendants behind in the snowy station. A silver-haired guard suddenly turns back, her expression stiffening as if she noticed something unexpected behind her. Her face tightens with shock and embarrassment, reacting strongly as if she was caught off guard by someone watching her. Dekulin silently meets her gaze, showing no emotion, while the moment creates an awkward tension between the two. Several hours later, the train moves through heavy snow, its engine releasing dark smoke as it heads deeper into the northern region. Inside the passenger car, travelers sit quietly, and the atmosphere feels controlled as escorts remain alert among the passengers. Deculane advises rest to conserve strength, and the professor agrees, preparing to sleep as the journey continues. The professor's companion falls asleep, while Deculane remains awake, reflecting on the danger tied to traveling toward Birched. A warning is recalled that Birched is called the Mage's Grave, a place feared because countless mages have met death after being summoned. He identifies the most dangerous upcoming event as the train attack, recognizing that survival requires careful planning and strict control of every choice. Deculane reflects that the original version of himself would have acted differently, but he understands such reckless action is impossible under his current circumstances. Dark memories surface of a fatal confrontation tied to forbidden power, reminding him why direct involvement would only repeat a disastrous outcome. To prevent that fate, he recalls the preparations completed before departure, ensuring he would not face the coming danger unguarded. Several days earlier, Deculane invited a young assistant named Alan to accompany him to Birched, presenting the offer with calculated indifference. Alan accepted eagerly despite visible nervousness, unaware that his presence would become part of a larger defensive plan. Watching the response carefully, Deculane questions whether the young man's ambition runs deeper than expected. The train continues across snow-covered tracks while escorts maintain formation outside, guarding the route toward Birched. Inside the carriage, Deculane notes that only one station remains before arrival and observes that no disturbance has occurred so far. He quietly wonders whether selecting this specific train has successfully altered the predetermined chain of events. Specialized clothing, enhanced through magical modification, is reviewed in his thoughts, including reinforced fabric designed to resist sudden attacks. Metal fragments hidden within the train structure have been strengthened through his technique, forming unseen layers of protection. Even Alan's garments were reinforced as a precaution, though Deculane acknowledges the heavy toll such enhancements placed on his mana reserves. Despite exhaustion from repeated use of his ability, he convinces himself the preparation was necessary to survive the predicted assault. Leaning back with measured relief, he hopes the journey will remain peaceful until reaching Birched. Suddenly, a violent explosion erupts along the train's exterior, shattering the fragile calm and signaling that the attack has begun. Across the snowy mountains, a steam train carried its passengers, days before Deculane's departure. Smoke trailed behind as the long bridge cut through the frozen landscape. Within a private cabin, Sylvia sat with a book while her father observed her quietly. His gaze suggested concern over her constant focus on study. Attention turned to the Magic Tower's assignments and the classes she had missed. He reminded her that the path to becoming an archmage demanded greater effort than others. Private thoughts revealed that Sylvia regretted losing Deculane's lessons more than any rivalry. Disappointment lingered beneath her calm expression. Curiosity arose about their early departure for Birched summoning assembly. She questioned why they could not delay the journey. Silence followed as her father stared at the mountains outside. His distant look hinted at dangers awaiting them. Gradually, he mentioned that Birched was known as the Graveyard of Mages. The cabin's atmosphere grew tense. Shock appeared on Sylvia's face when he confirmed the rumors were true. Realization replaced her earlier confusion. Stories of young nobles who never returned were explained carefully. Prestige, she understood, often demanded sacrifice. According to her father, powerful families competed fiercely during the assembly. Weak candidates could be eliminated without mercy. Responsibility weighed on him as he implied. Bringing her was a difficult choice. Anxiety surfaced in Sylvia's eyes. Comparison followed, describing the trip as walking on fragile ice where successors sought to replace others. Ambition required someone's fall. Understanding dawned when Sylvia realized their haste was about survival. Delay could mean danger. Grim resolve shaped her father's explanation that noble status offered no protection. Even respected families could suffer loss. Acceptance settled as he concluded that deaths at Birched were treated as ordinary events. Sylvia recognized that advancement demanded constant risk. Inside the ornate train cabin, Deculane sat upright with a book in hand while a young boy slept beside him. Snowy mountains passed beyond the tall windows. Without warning, a projectile struck the side of the train, sparks bursting along the metal exterior. The impact signaled an organized attack, rather than an accident. A violent explosion erupted beneath the carriage, shaking the entire structure. Fire and force spread outward as the blast disrupted the train's balance. Shock crossed the boy's face as the cabin trembled violently. Deculane, however, remained composed despite the sudden chaos. Calm focus sharpened in his eyes as blue mana gathered around him. He reacted instantly, activating a memorized spell. Telekinetic energy surged outward, surrounding the carriage in a stabilizing force. The magic lifted the train before it could plunge into the ravine. From outside, the entire train hovered in midair above the broken bridge. Blue currents of mana wrapped around the cars, holding them suspended. Relief briefly appeared on Deculin's face as stability returned. The immediate disaster had been prevented. AA message confirmed that elementary telekinesis had been successfully executed. Preparation before departure had ensured their survival. Elsewhere on the bridge, masked attackers gathered while smoke rose into the sky. Their leader instructed them to stay focused and complete the mission. Confidence spread among the group as they believed the train was helpless. Rewards awaited if they succeeded. One attacker prepared another strike, aiming directly at the suspended carriage. Inside the cabin, gravity shifted again as windows shattered and debris scattered. The attackers forced their way onto the train. Deculane anticipated the intrusion and manipulated floating shards of glass with precise control. Mana responded sharply to his command. A swift counterattack pierced through the masked assailants, stopping their advance instantly. The ambush collapsed as his prepared magic overwhelmed them. Blood scattered across a masked attacker's face as he realized the ambush had failed. Shock replaced his confidence when Deculane's counterattack struck first. Alan panicked at the sudden assault, unable to grasp the scale of the situation. Deculane remained composed, standing behind him without visible fear. With precise control, Deculane struck Alan lightly at the neck, rendering him unconscious to prevent interference. The movement was swift and calculated. Turning toward Varen, Deculane ordered the boy moved to safety and instructed that other passengers be evacuated immediately. His tone carried quiet authority. After securing the cabin, he stepped through a torn opening in the train's exterior. Blue telekinetic energy continued holding the train in mid-air. Observation followed as he sensed something unnatural about the attacker's magic. The mana density felt weaker than expected. Suspicion formed when he concluded the explosive force lacked proper refinement. An experienced mage would have produced far greater impact. Calmly, he stated he would finish the matter before analyzing further. Cold air surrounded him as he prepared another spell. Massive crystalline constructs manifested inside the carriage, responding to his precise mana control. The attackers realized too late that he was fully aware. Two masked figures braced themselves as the atmosphere darkened around them. Fear surfaced beneath their earlier confidence. Deculane declared that their deaths would not be natural accidents. Blue aura flared around his body as pressure intensified. A violent surge of telekinetic force crushed resistance instantly. The attackers were overwhelmed without opportunity to escape. Outside the broken carriage, Varen secured Alan while the train remained suspended. Mana currents stabilized the damaged structure. Inside, fallen attackers lay motionless across the blood-stained floor. Deculane assessed the aftermath, aware of the strain on his reserves. Exhaustion became evident as he noted the heavy mana cost of maintaining telekinesis while fighting. Even so, the passengers were safe, and control remained in his hands. A red-eyed attacker observed Deculane closely, sensing that his presence felt different from before. Suspicion formed as he realized the earlier counterattack had not been simple defense. Deculane remained still inside the damaged carriage, unaware that the surviving enemy had concealed his true strength from the beginning. Sudden crimson energy erupted around the attacker, intensifying the atmosphere inside the train. Recognition struck Deculane as he understood he had underestimated the opponent's hidden capability. Regret surfaced when he realized his guard had lowered too soon. A sharp flash of red light cut through the cabin, signaling a decisive move. The attacker advanced with lethal intent. Standing amid swirling crimson force, the enemy resolved to finish the battle personally. Deculane, a black-haired noble with blood staining his collar, questioned the red-haired knight's sudden hostility, and carefully observed the unstable energy gathering around him. Before the knight could finish accusing him, violent red mana erupted outward, distorting the air and forcing Deculane to reassess the situation instantly. Recognizing the knight's loyalty toward his master, Deculane understood the threat was genuine, and that the confrontation would not end peacefully. Suspicion crossed Deculane's mind as he analyzed the knight's reaction, realizing the fury seemed unrelated to the woman mentioned moments earlier. Memories surfaced of the knight being trusted by the Order, which made the betrayal even more dangerous within the confined hall. With limited mana remaining, Deculane calculated his survival chances and prepared himself for a decisive action. The knight lunged first, crimson power trailing behind his blade, as Deculane raised his guard despite the visible strain on his body. Steel clashed briefly before Deculane activated a countermeasure, releasing a controlled surge that disrupted the knight's telekinetic force. A massive shockwave exploded outward, tearing through the structure and sending debris scattering across the courtyard below. Far from the battlefield, a blonde woman sat quietly in her room as a guard knight offered her a cold dessert to ease the tense atmosphere. The guard reported that nearly everyone had gathered, indirectly implying that Deculine and another key figure were absent. She declined further concern, maintaining composure while the knight withdrew, leaving her alone with her thoughts. Silence settled in the warmly lit room as the blonde woman remained seated, reflecting on the unfolding turmoil elsewhere. The guard exited with measured steps, trusting her calm response despite the uncertainty beyond the door. Lowering her gaze, she softly uttered Deculin's name, revealing that her attention remained fixed on him amid the chaos. A quiet afternoon settled over the cemetery as the blonde girl arrived carrying white flowers, intending to visit her mother's grave, like she always did. Cecilia von Elleman, Illide, knelt down gently, showing familiarity with the place, and her calm expression suggested this was a routine visit without unusual emotion. While sitting beside the grave, she reflected on her ordinary day and tried to relax, unaware that something unexpected would soon interrupt her. From a higher view, Cecilia remained near the gravestones and complained silently about Professor Deculine giving too many assignments. A strange sound suddenly echoed through the area, causing her to stop mid-thought as her eyes widened and her attention shifted toward the nearby path. Unease grew as she sensed movement behind the trees, and her body stiffened in surprise, realizing someone else was present in the cemetery. Deculine appeared kneeling before a grave, his posture heavy and silent. Watching him from a distance, Cecilia struggled to understand why he would come to such a place, and her curiosity overpowered her caution. As Deculine finally stood and turned slightly, his expression remained controlled. Later, Cecilia's thoughts replayed the moment, and she realized Deculine had been crying, despite always acting proud and untouchable in public. The image of his tears stayed in her mind, making her reconsider his reputation, and she began to suspect he carried personal grief hidden beneath his strict behavior. Even as she walked away, the memory continued to bother her, leaving her unable to treat him as simply an arrogant noble anymore. Back in a quiet room, Cecilia held her hands close to her chest. Information reached her about an attack involving the train later on, which made her connect the timing with Deculin's strange presence that day. After attending Deculine's lecture again, she decided there was something she needed to test, believing the truth about him was more complicated than it seemed. Sylvia cupped the glowing mana stone in both hands, focusing carefully as she attempted to use it as a medium to stabilize her magic. Golden light surged outward as the three primary colors of her attribute intertwined, forming a structured flow that responded to her control. Gradually, the mana condensed into the shape of a small luminous bird, and Sylvia realized her experiment had finally succeeded. Holding the glowing creature close, Sylvia calmly gave it a name, establishing authority over the magic she had just created. The bird flapped its radiant wings, its body shining with controlled energy, as it hovered in front of her face. With a steady command, Sylvia ordered it to fly and observe, intending to gather information from a distant location. Far away, inside a damaged train carriage suspended along a mountain track, debris drifted through the air as the structure trembled violently. Deculine forced himself up from the fractured floor, blood staining his clothes while he endured the pain of multiple injuries. Outside, the train hung dangerously over a snowy ravine, smoke rising into the cold sky though it had not yet fallen. Assessing his condition, Deculine acknowledged his broken bones but resolved to recover quickly before confronting the attacker known as Iron Man. Suddenly red mana burst through the carriage as his opponent launched another assault, confident that Deculine should have collapsed already. Despite his injuries, Deculine remained standing, his composure frustrating the enemy who could not understand his resilience. Blue energy gathered around Deculine's arm, forming a concentrated blade-like projection as he prepared a precise counterattack. The red-haired adversary activated a protective artifact, attempting to block the incoming strike, while expressing irritation at Deculine's persistence. Crimson and Azure forces collided violently inside the shattered carriage, their clash shaking the suspended train as the battle intensified. Inside the shaking train carriage, Deculin pushed forward despite his injuries, realizing his opponent's strength was far beyond what he could overpower directly. Cold sweat formed as he calculated the difference in power, understanding that even at full condition, defeating the enemy in a normal fight was impossible. Instead of retreating, he prepared another approach, keeping his focus steady while his body struggled to endure the pressure of the battle. A rare trait called Resolute activated within him, forcing his mind to remain sharp and unbroken, even as pain spread through his muscles and bones. Deculine lifted his hand and stepped into the enemy's range. Blue energy surged around the shattered interior, and the space between them narrowed as Deculine moved with controlled urgency. Glass and debris exploded outward when Deculine was thrown back. A brief moment of clarity passed through him as he sensed the sword descending again, sharper and more dangerous than before. Recognizing the unavoidable threat, he tightened his stance and accepted that one mistake would end everything immediately. As the blade cut through the air, Dekulin wondered if death here would end his life completely, or return him to the familiar office, like nothing happened. Blood splattered across the carriage walls, confirming that the attack had connected, and that his body had reached its limit. Far above the snowy mountains, Sylvia's glowing bird continued flying over the rail line, unknowingly witnessing the aftermath of Dekulin's desperate struggle. A blade descends from above as Dekulin stands beneath it, sensing the distortion in the air while faint energy trembles through the darkened hall. Cold light spreads across the chamber as the weapon strikes, and the surrounding space vibrates violently, forcing him to brace against the sudden magical surge. Shock registers in his eyes when the mana around him begins to waver uncontrollably, signaling that the attack carries more power than anticipated. Without hesitation, Dekulin steps forward and draws his sword, redirecting the force with calculated precision as sparks and fragments scatter across the floor. A sharp counter cuts through the air, slicing across his opponent, while crimson droplets stain the polished surface beneath them. Despite the injury dealt, the enemy lunges again, driven by desperation, while Dekulin steadies himself and measures the narrowing distance. Steel collides once more, as both figures crash into nearby furniture, shattering wood and sending debris across the dim interior. Momentum shifts when Dekulin grips his weapon firmly and pivots, forcing his opponent backward through sheer technique rather than brute strength. The clash pushes them toward an opening where cold air pours in, hinting that the battle is about to spill outside. Snow whirls around them as Dekulin raises his sword, channeling mana that forms a visible current around his composed figure. His adversary charges from below, cloak snapping in the wind, attempting one decisive strike before exhaustion takes hold. Energy surges outward from Dekulin's stance, overwhelming the charge and forcing the attacker into a halt. Silence replaces the chaos as both stand facing each other, breaths visible in the winter air. Accusation hangs between them, yet Dekulin's expression remains restrained, revealing neither anger nor regret. Understanding fails to bridge the divide, as the confrontation ends unresolved. Outside the Academy's grand estate, a knight finishes assisting a noblewoman and her child, and gratitude is exchanged as the calm scene draws nearby attention. From a short distance away, Dekulin observes quietly, noticing the boy's strange confidence and the way he acts as if rules do not apply to him. Suddenly, the child's temper flares, and his rude behavior shocks those around him, creating tension that spreads across the courtyard. Pointing sharply, the noblewoman accuses Dekulin of wrongdoing and demands harsh punishment, treating him like a criminal without hesitation. Instead of agreeing, the knight steps between them and questions the charge of trespassing, clearly refusing to accept the accusation blindly. With firm posture, she forces the noblewoman to explain the situation properly, while Dekulin remains restrained and avoids reacting emotionally. Near the towering iron gate, guards stand watch as the conversation shifts to how Dekulin could have entered such a heavily protected estate. Rough hands seize him and bind him, yet his slim frame makes the guards hesitate, since he does not resemble a dangerous attacker. After a moment of judgment, the knight decides to escort Dekulin personally, ordering the noblewoman to stay behind instead of continuing her demands. Along a forest path glowing with sunset light, Dekulin struggles against the restraints, insisting he only acted to defend himself. While continuing forward, the knight listens calmly and reveals she already knows the dark reputation of his family. Anger bursts from Dekulin as he rejects the claims completely, refusing to accept responsibility for what he believes is forced blame. Stopping in the road, the knight turns and warns him that violence will always lead to consequences, no matter the reason. Unexpectedly, she offers him guidance instead of cruelty, suggesting she could teach him to control his mana properly. Silence follows as Dekulin processes her words, realizing this confrontation may become the start of a different fate. Crimson light fills the battlefield as Veron swings his blade with fierce determination, marking the moment he formally becomes a member of the Knight Order. Life within the Order proves isolating, as his cold personality prevents easy friendships and leaves him standing apart from the other knights. Amid that distance, one presence remains constant, the captain whose steady guidance becomes the only warmth in his rigid routine. During training, she approaches Veron with a gentle expression, checking on his condition, despite his tendency to keep emotions hidden. Lowering his gaze, he answers briefly, convinced that everything feels stable as long as he can remain near her side. Whenever danger appears, her figure always stands ahead of him, shielding others without hesitation or fear. In the city streets, she helps the weak and listens patiently, offering assistance without seeking recognition. Faced with corruption, she responds firmly, striking down injustice and refusing compromise, even when powerful figures protest. Watching from a distance, Veron feels admiration deepen into something far more personal and difficult to restrain. Snow falls around them as Veron confesses inwardly that his feelings may burden her, yet he cannot suppress them any longer. Across from him stands Deculine, wounded but resolute, declaring his intention to change a future stained by regret. Between falling snow and fading breath, Veron recognizes the truth in Deculine's resolve, yet refuses to yield his own conviction. Raising his hand to shield his eyes from the wind, Veron listens as Deculine promises he will never harm Julie under any circumstance. Uncertainty flickers across Veron's red eyes, torn between distrust and the sincerity reflected in Deculine's determined stance. Extending his hand forward, Deculine offers trust instead of hostility, forcing Veron to reconsider the path shaped by obsession and loyalty. Under a violent red glow, Veron faces Deculine with unwavering resolve, his blade raised as he declares his intention to end everything without hesitation. Blood-colored energy surges between them, while Deculine remains steady, absorbing the threat and refusing to retreat, despite the killing intent aimed at him. Determination hardens Veron's expression as he commits fully to his decision, convinced that eliminating Deculine is the only way to protect Julie. A sudden shift in atmosphere follows as Deculine counters calmly, gripping his weapon while cold blue power gathers around his composed figure. With calculated precision, he warns that this reckless choice will only bring lasting regret, yet his tone remains controlled rather than emotional. Energy descends sharply from above, cutting through the red aura and forcing Veron to confront the overwhelming difference in power. Far away in a quiet forest, Julie pauses mid-step as an uneasy feeling crosses her face. While she reassures those beside her, the distant battlefield erupts again, and Veron's body is struck down amid fading crimson light. As darkness closes around him, Veron releases his final wish for Julie's happiness, accepting the consequence of his unwavering loyalty. Snow fell heavily over the mountains, as a damaged train lay tilted on the cliffside, showing clear signs of an attack and violent destruction. A glowing magical eye appeared in the air, spreading strange blue energy while Deculine struggled beneath the pressure, sensing an unnatural force controlling the scene. After the chaos settled, Deculine remained injured and weak, realizing the danger had not ended, and that the attack was meant specifically for him. Lilia Freyden, the Security Bureau Vice Chief, arrived at the crash site and immediately began inspecting the wreckage with a serious and cautious expression. Reports confirmed the explosion was an ambush, yet the situation seemed too organized to be a random incident, raising suspicion about the attacker's intentions. When Lilia learned 2 people were missing, including Deculine, her attention sharpened. A survivor explained that the train was struck mid-air, forcing it down violently. The survivor handed over a photograph showing magical energy surrounding the train, proving the crash was not caused by normal weapons or accidents. Lilia studied the image closely and realized the entire train had been affected by a wide-range spell, meaning the enemy possessed powerful magic later. Lilia received information that the Knight Veron had died. The update shocked her, since Deculine surviving meant another hidden fighter must have interfered, creating a new mystery at the scene. While investigators continued searching through the snowy wreckage, suddenly, a figure approached from the distance, and the guards reacted instantly as Deculine appeared alive, walking forward with visible injuries. Deculine remained calm despite his battered condition, recalling how an unnamed knight had intervened during the attack and prevented his death. Although he survived, Deculine felt disturbed by how close he had come to falling off the cliff. Realizing his enemies were becoming far more dangerous, Deculine narrowed his eyes in silence, still haunted by the memory of the mysterious person who had saved him during the deadly train incident. Lilia Freemian approached him formally and confirmed his safety, then prepared to question him while keeping her tone professional and cautious. Instead of answering immediately, Deculine asked for the current time, and once he heard it was 3:30, he began calculating his remaining time. Standing among the wreckage, Deculine quietly realized he had only 6 hours left before an important event, making every moment feel urgent. Lilia questioned him about whether the train was the only route to Bircht, showing concern that another attack could happen again. Deculine revealed there were other travel paths, including a road and sea route, while Lilia insisted on asking about the knight who had been with him. Suddenly, Deculine vanished from sight, leaving Lilia staring down the empty railway track as the cold wind blew across the snow-covered mountains. The guards panicked, assuming he had used acceleration magic. Lilia analyzed the situation calmly and concluded Deculine must have used a high-level movement spell, then quietly identified the missing knight as Lockhart. Far away, the Bircht Assembly Hall stood grand and silent, prepared for an important gathering as snow drifted through the massive interior. Officials and nobles gathered as the time approached 9:33, knowing the stars would soon gather and the ceremony would officially begin. Even as the preparations continued, Deculion had still not arrived, causing tension to build among those waiting before the assembly started. Suddenly, an overwhelming surge of purple mana erupted through the hall, shaking the atmosphere and forcing everyone to sense the power entering. Observers immediately recognized the energy as belonging to Dzikad, Bert's great elder, whose presence carried authority and immense magical pressure. Deculion understood that reaching Archmage-level strength was necessary to challenge such power. Inside the Birched Assembly Hall, attendance began as the names of the 12 sorcerers were called one by one, confirming their presence before the ceremony. Several family heads responded calmly, taking their seats beneath the vast ceiling while the atmosphere remained tense over one noticeable absence. When Deculion of the Eucline family was called, silence followed, and the empty seat beneath his name deepened the unease spreading across the chamber. Murmurs circulated as observers questioned whether Eucline would fail to appear, before his name was called 3 times under formal procedure. It was declared that failure to respond to the summons would result in elimination from the 12 sorcerers, marking a serious political consequence. Nobles discussed how unprecedented such a removal would be, especially since the 12 had maintained their positions for 2 centuries. Some attendees mocked Deculion's recent survival, doubting how he had continued living, despite repeated danger and rumors surrounding his condition. Among them, one woman lowered her gaze, clearly troubled by the ridicule directed at him, unable to ignore her concern, echoed once more across the chamber. Just as the final call was about to conclude, the massive doors burst open with a surge of light that forced everyone to turn. A tall figure stepped forward from the radiance, his silhouette unmistakable as he entered with steady, controlled steps. Voices rose in shock as Deculion appeared alive and composed, immediately halting the assembly's assumption of his absence. Snow dusted his coat as he walked calmly down the central aisle, ignoring the stares that followed his return. Members watched in silence while his presence alone reshaped the atmosphere, replacing doubt with restrained tension at last. It was formally announced that Deculion von Grahan Eucline had arrived, restoring his position before the assembly could move against him. The Imperial Meeting Hall remained silent as officials discussed the Black Mountain Demon. Ephorine presented her stance while Athenzi supported strict supervision over suspicious mages. Without significant opposition, the first agenda concluded quickly and efficiently. During recess, Deculion stood apart, maintaining composure despite overwhelming exhaustion. His mana and stamina were nearly depleted, yet his appearance remained flawless. From above, the Grand Chamber looked orderly, though Deculion observed everyone carefully. Alan hurried into the hall and stopped directly before Deculion. After apologizing for arriving late, the young boy faced him nervously. Deculion quietly questioned the innocence behind Alan's seemingly harmless behavior. A memory from Deculion's previous world suddenly influenced his judgment. He instructed Alan to stand beside him for closer observation. Behind a calm expression, Deculion resolved to uncover Alan's true identity. The council reconvened as attention shifted toward the next serious matter. Discussion focused on the Bloodshroud sorcerer who recently appeared within Imperial territory. Recognizing the gravity, Deculion understood this issue would not end easily. Yulian angrily denounced the Bloodshrouds, comparing them to parasites corroding Imperial lands. Athenzi firmly rejected his accusations, insisting mages never cooperated with other races. The argument escalated as past failures were invoked, reigniting unresolved resentment. Yulian defended his claims, asserting the Bloodshrouds gathered with dangerous intentions. Athenzi dismissed his words as speculation, criticizing his emotional reasoning. Tension thickened as both factions confronted decades of buried hostility. Attention shifted when a senior noble requested Deculion of Eucline's opinion. The room quieted. Recognizing Eucline's legacy in eradicating demons historically, Deculion remained silent briefly, organizing his thoughts before responding carefully. He acknowledged hatred persisted after suppressing previous uprisings involving Bloodshrouds. However, Deculion suggested they were not the world's true enemy. He implied a greater force existed, requiring time to prepare. Athenzi questioned whether history was being revised for convenience. Deculion referenced ancient records describing repeated cycles of bloodshed. The chamber erupted again, as his claims challenged Eucline's past narrative. Yulian insisted the Bloodshrouds were demons, claiming Eucline tradition existed to destroy them. Deculion calmly clarified that Eucline hunted demons, not an entire separate race. Fury distorted Euline's expression as he stubbornly equated Bloodshrouds with demonic beings. Alan quietly questioned Deculion's reasoning while observing the escalating hostility. Deculion stated revenge only fueled conflict, preventing rational understanding between factions. The meeting was declared inconclusive. postponing further debate until the following day. After dismissal, students discussed the tense confrontation lingering within the chamber. Later that evening, a blonde noblewoman reviewed documents alone inside her bedroom. Fatigue overtook her, prompting her to extinguish lights and rest. Suddenly, violent purple energy distorted the walls surrounding her bed. The familiar bedroom warped into an unfamiliar hallway filled with crackling mana. Realizing space itself had shifted, she sensed something had gone terribly wrong. Sylvia stands in a dimly lit room, her gaze fixed on the purple glow. She feels the weight of overconfidence, realizing the dangerous situation she now finds herself in. The dark presence intensifies, and Sylvia senses something unnatural lurking in the shadows around her. Sylvia frantically searches for an escape, feeling trapped as the environment grows increasingly distorted. Her mind races with instructions: avoid stairs and rooms, and just keep moving forward quickly. Desperation sets in as she realizes she's surrounded, trapped with no clear way to escape. Sylvia calls out for help, her voice trembling as she realizes she is utterly alone. Faint footsteps echo, and she feels a fleeting hope as someone approaches from behind her. Through the door, Sylvia spots Deculin, his sudden appearance bringing both relief and confusion. As Deculin steps closer, Sylvia feels overwhelmed by his presence, yet a sense of unease. She speaks her gratitude, but wonders why Deculin has appeared at this critical moment. Despite feeling relieved, Sylvia senses something is off. Unsure if she should trust Deculin, a fiery explosion erupts, jolting Sylvia out of her thoughts, panic flooding through her body. Sylvia apologizes nervously, but Deculin remains eerily calm, revealing unsettling knowledge of the situation. Sylvia's unease deepens, realizing Deculin's presence might be connected to the strange occurrences surrounding her. A terrifying purple skull materializes, causing Sylvia to freeze in horror as it approaches her. Deculin orders Sylvia to stay still, his calm command contrasting with the chaos surrounding them. A burst of magical energy from Deculin pushes the skull back, stopping its advance toward Sylvia. Sylvia watches in awe as the attacking ghostly figures are neutralized by Deculin's powerful magic. A glowing crystal materializes in the air, signaling the end of the attack as the atmosphere settles. Deculin calmly informs Sylvia that the ghosts were killed by specialized magic, not something to be proud of. Sylvia is visibly shocked by Deculin's nonchalant attitude, yet intrigued by his strange power. As the flames from Deculin's magic flicker, Sylvia is left in awe, realizing its destructive potential. Sylvia nervously asks, "What is this fire?" as she stares at the blazing inferno surrounding Deculin. Deculin's response is calm and measured. "This is flowing flame," he declares, making it sound simple. Sylvia remains in awe, but Deculin's words reveal his mastery over dangerous and potent magic. His calm demeanor contrasts with the intense flames, making it clear how dangerous he really is. Deculin continues explaining, showing mastery in lightning, fire, and other complex magics to Sylvia. Sylvia's mind races, trying to comprehend the full scope of Deculin's magical abilities. Deculin smirks, challenging Sylvia with the thought that she should discover her own weaknesses. Sylvia stands, her impatience evident, as she waits for Deculin's next instruction. Deculin speaks calmly, telling her to cease her impatience and reminding her that time is on her side. Sylvia listens, understanding that her dedication is key, and Deculin reassures her that she will improve. Sylvia reflects on her progress, feeling uncertain despite her hard work and dedication. She realizes that while others compliment her, something about Deculin's words feels different. As she stares at the night sky, Sylvia ponders why Deculin's words resonate more deeply than the others. Deculin's words suddenly stir something within Sylvia, and she can't shake the feeling. As she paces around, she questions herself, trying to understand the deeper meaning behind Deculin's intentions. Sylvia's thoughts are interrupted as she looks toward the distant horizon, deep in thought. Deculin's attention shifts as he feels a surge of energy, wondering what it could be. As he moves outside, the energy grows stronger, catching his attention. Deculin realizes that something unusual is happening, and he wonders if it's related to Sylvia's progress. The atmosphere becomes tense as strange occurrences intensify around Deculin. As he approaches the source of the disturbance, he feels the presence of an unknown force. Deculin carefully steps forward, cautious but determined, knowing he must understand the source of the energy. Deculin discovers a fragment of magic, identifying it as a powerful mana tree shard. He realizes the magical power from the fragment could help him improve faster, despite his doubts. Holding the fragment, Deculin contemplates how it might be used to accelerate his growth and surpass limitations. Tension rises in the room as Deculin challenges the logic of others regarding the demon. A participant defensively argues their plan is sufficient, but Deculane raises a pointed observation. The group acknowledges the complexity, with Deculane's remarks complicating their decision-making process further. Deculane calmly states that others are missing the main point, creating a shift in atmosphere. The leader grows impatient, cutting through the tension, forcing the group to move forward. He declares the matter postponed, leaving a sense of unease as they change topics. The meeting wraps up, and participants file out, leaving unresolved tensions lingering in the room. As the group disperses, Deculane reflects on how quickly the discussions came to a close. Quietly frustrated, Deculane feels his distance from the group growing with each passing moment. The next day, Deculane walks through Bircht's shopping district, contemplating his next move ahead. He focuses on finding the right materials to craft a wand before leaving the city. While shopping, an unexpected interaction pulls Deculane's attention away from his planned mission. A cheerful student greets Deculane, mentioning a person who helped them safely navigate their journey. The student describes this person as a hero, prompting Deculane to grow curious about them. The student reveals the hero is Lilia Premian, the vice chief of the Security Bureau. Deculane and his companions decided to treat Lilia Premian to a meal as thanks. Lilia thanks them for the meal, but reminds them that the investigation has concluded. She asks what happened to the escort guard, and Deculane explains he died from an ambush. Lilia mentions the Imperial Order, detailing that Lockhart will be sent to the notorious prison. She speaks about his punishment, saying it's obvious considering his involvement in killing innocent mages. Deculane listens carefully, understanding the implications, and reflects on the situation with a reserved expression. Lilia asks Lockhart to activate his power, expecting him to obey her command immediately. The room fills with an electric charge as Lockhart releases a surge of power. Energy crackles through the air, and Deculane watches closely, noting the strength of Lockhart's power. Lilia grows angry as the energy surges, reprimanding Lockhart for acting recklessly with his power. She scolds him for being rash, knowing the negative consequences could have endangered their mission. Lockhart chuckles, despite Lilia's anger, hinting that he had thought about killing her earlier. Lilia continues to scold Lockhart, insisting that his actions have made their situation more difficult. She mentions how their kind is often feared for having demonic-like abilities, which complicates things. Lockhart remains nonchalant, challenging her, and questioning why she provoked Deculane. Knowing the consequences, Lockhart grows irritated, questioning the wisdom of provoking Deculane, already under watch by others. Lilia responds calmly, stating they're already keeping an eye on the Euclians, cautioning him. Lockhart remains silent, his gaze intense, as he contemplates the consequences of his actions. Lilia warns that they are only observing for now, but trouble could lead to death. Lockhart scoffs, arguing that he's a noble and shouldn't be treated like a criminal. Lilia, unfazed, tells him not to speak like that, questioning his justification for such actions. Lilia comments on Lockhart's noble status, but he challenges her view on his actions. He recalls the Bloodshroud ancestors and criticizes their deeds, mocking the idea of nobility. Lilia defends her stance, explaining how this noble didn't kill her, despite knowing her identity. Lilia mentions how her ancestry complicates things, explaining the history and challenges she faces. Lockhart responds cynically, questioning how long she can stay in a position of power. He contemplates the difficulty of differentiating between Bloodshroud descendants and humans, making their survival harder. Lilia discusses how the imperial family's health is declining, affecting their response to Bloodshroud matters. She notes someone new will soon be appointed, awaiting how they'll handle Bloodshroud concerns. Lockhart suggests they need to lay low until then, silently observing how events unfold. At the same time, an order from Freeheim was given, causing a sudden shift in events. Lockhart, confused, asks to have the previous statement repeated, unsure of the significance of it. The other person sighs, unsure of how to respond but ready to clarify the situation. The news comes in: Varen has died during the mission, causing immediate shock and concern. Lockhart remains silent for a moment, processing the information with visible concern and surprise. Orders are given to prepare immediately, knowing that an explanation is needed upon Deculane's return. Deculane stands, observing the head of the Rewind family, a pivotal figure in the meeting. A conversation begins, with Deculane quietly considering the situation, sensing an underlying tension building. The head of the Rewind family seems aloof, plotting his next move carefully in silence. A key question is unexpectedly directed at Deculane, catching him off guard and shifting the atmosphere. Deculane pauses to reflect, realizing that the discussion has shifted into more dangerous territory. The situation grows more complicated as Deculane begins to understand the stakes of this conversation. Deculane's patience is tested as a direct challenge to his loyalty emerges from the conversation. The room falls silent, and Deculine carefully measures his response to the mounting tension. Despite the provocative words, Deculine remains calm, internally preparing for the next steps ahead. A new comment regarding Deculine's research causes Alan to react, but Deculine remains composed. Alan's reaction is swift, yet Deculine dismisses the insult, focusing on his grander objective. Deculine reflects on the insult, acknowledging the insignificance of his opponent's thoughts in his plan. The conversation shifts towards the research presentation, with Deculine calculating the remaining time to act. Talk of the presentation intensifies, but Deculine's mind remains focused on his next strategic move. Others begin questioning Deculine's true intentions, sensing that his plans go far beyond their understanding. The next day arrives, marking the start of a new chapter as Deculine prepares to leave. Before departing, Deculine had commissioned a renowned craftsman to create a custom wand. He reflects on the quest's completion, and the rare wand crafted by the famous Rockalock. On the train ride back to the Empire, Deculine shares a carriage with Vithan. Throughout the trip, strange occurrences unfold, heightening Deculine's suspicions about Vithan's intentions. Finally, the long journey reaches its end, but Deculine's unease remains unresolved. Arriving at the station, Deculine's companion mentions they are nearing the final train transfer. The scene outside shifts from snow to a more varied landscape, a welcome change. As the train slows, Deculine's mind remains focused on the tasks ahead. Outside the station, Deculine encounters Julie, a familiar figure with an intense look in her eyes. Julie remarks that she's heard about the ambush, expressing relief at Deculine's safe return. Deculine acknowledges her concern, but a sense of foreboding hangs in the air. Julie shares what she's heard, referencing a news story about Deculine's collaboration to save victims. She speaks of the partnership with someone else, seeking clarification from Deculine about the details. Julie's serious expression suggests she is trying to piece together the truth behind the events. Deculine turns toward Julie, asking her how the situation unfolded, clearly seeking her opinion. Julie stands still, observing the situation with a knowing look, her emotions unreadable in that moment. Her gaze lingers, and Deculine wonders what thoughts occupy her mind as they silently acknowledge each other. Deculine reflects on the events that led him here, questioning whether he should reveal everything to Julie. He recalls the conflict with Varan, who had attempted to kill him, and how it escalated. Standing before Julie, Deculine struggles with the decision to tell her the painful truth. The weight of his decision presses on him, knowing the truth would deeply hurt Julie. Deculine contemplates his options, realizing that revealing the truth could cause Julie unbearable pain. He knows he must make a difficult choice, and Julie's heart may not be able to handle it. Despite his inner turmoil, Deculine recognizes that the truth may not be avoidable for long. Julie's unyielding conviction will undoubtedly clash with the harsh reality that Deculine is hiding. Deculine silently resolves that the right course of action is to reveal the painful truth. Regardless, Deculine's thoughts flash forward to the consequences, knowing Julie may blame herself for events beyond control. Even though revealing the truth feels impossible, Deculine is determined to face the consequences head-on. Julie's emotional nature has always been clear to him, and he expects her to be heartbroken. Sylvia looks concerned, questioning why Deculine held back when they were seen as victims by others. Deculine responds with confusion, asking what exactly Sylvia believes he should have held back. With a calm gesture, Deculine hands Sylvia a gift, changing the focus from the previous conversation. Sylvia gazes at the gift, puzzled, asking Deculine about its significance, wondering what it could be. Deculine, with a calm expression, replies that he does not know what the gift contains. Exhausted, Deculine expresses his desire to quickly return home, eager to rest after their long journey. A burst of light envelops the figure, signaling a massive change in the environment. The figure calmly observes the destruction, while followers stand nearby, witnessing the profound transformation unfolding. In a quiet moment, the figure expresses gratitude for the assistance amid the ongoing chaos. Standing alone, the figure stares out over the snowy landscape, reflecting on the lost arm. The figure feels the emptiness of the past and laments the futility of their sacrifices. Frustration builds as the figure angrily curses someone, blaming them for wasting their efforts and time. A loud cry echoes as the name, Deculine, is shouted across the tense building. Inside, a confrontation erupts, with the woman angrily accusing someone of exacerbating the family's crisis. The man tries to calm her, but she insists that their financial situation is dire. A man walks through a dark hallway, his mind focused on the recent troubling events. An exchange reveals that the man has found a way to resolve the financial crisis. While discussing their plan, the man reflects on the auction's importance, unaware of its deeper meaning. A quiet conversation takes place, with one person revealing their understanding of the ongoing situation. The tone shifts as they question the true motivations behind the upcoming auction and its implications. The man realizes the significance of the artifacts, understanding the dangerous power hidden within them. The figure, deep in thought, contemplates how they can use the items to increase wealth. A sudden burst of energy disrupts the surroundings as the person exclaims the phrase, "Midas touch." A servant questions what the figure is doing with their hand out, worried about the situation. The figure gestures toward the artifacts, instructing their servant to call an appraiser immediately to assess them. A sharp exchange occurs, with someone questioning why the figure is selling items that haven't aged long. The servant reluctantly agrees to the request, stating their understanding, while preparing to call the appraiser. As the vase is presented, the glowing aura from the artifact catches everyone's attention immediately. The figure realizes the vase's true value, understanding that it has become too precious to sell. A moment of reflection takes over as the figure contemplates keeping this artifact rather than selling. An auction house listing appears, revealing the vase's immense value and special properties related to magic. The figure discusses the vase's magical effects, noting that flowers will slowly grow with healing properties. A servant is ordered to handle the vase with care, as it is now invaluable. With the urgency of the situation, the figure ponders how to quickly generate funds for future needs. Others in the room express concern over the potential financial trouble, but the figure remains confident. The figure walks away from the discussion, reassuring everyone that everything will work out smoothly. The figure stands in front of a door, reflecting on their humble origins in a barren family. Their frustrations mount, recalling how even the professors at the academy treated them poorly. Their thoughts grow darker as they remember the many incidents that shaped their bitter journey. With a moment of reflection, the figure realizes how far they've come. Now surrounded by friends, they smile softly, acknowledging the strange joy of being part of a magic club now. However, one friend remarks on their club's superficiality, triggering a light-hearted rebuke from the figure. As the conversation continues, the figure notices someone approaching, causing immediate tension in the room. The newcomer, a professor, storms into the room, loudly questioning the purpose of the club. The professor scoffs at the members, claiming they are wasting space in the prestigious magic tower. The professor's harsh words are met with a sharp response, with the figure standing their ground. They calmly explain that the club was officially approved despite the professor's harsh judgment. The professor, enraged, challenges their validity, incredulously questioning how such a club was allowed to form. As tensions rise, the figure responds, confident in the club's purpose, but still tense from the situation. Another voice speaks up, offering a counterpoint and suggesting the professor might not fully understand. The professor, growing angrier, calls out once more, demanding the club be disbanded for good. The professor, still furious, demands an answer, questioning how anyone could have allowed such a club. The figure, with calm confidence, steps forward, revealing that it was they who approved the club. With a cold stare, the figure challenges the professor, daring him to voice any complaints. The professor, now visibly shaken, hesitates before confronting the figure directly, calling out their name. Deculine, unfazed, locks eyes with the professor, his presence commanding authority as the room tenses. The figure's confidence contrasts with the professor's anger, creating an intense atmosphere of confrontation. Professor Deculine stands confidently in the hallway, observing the group with authority and focus. A figure enters, slightly out of place, but quickly addressing the group with an explanation. Deculine responds without hesitation, asserting control over the situation and silencing any complaints or doubts. A weary individual rushes in, disheveled and exhausted, explaining their chaotic arrival after a disturbance. The newcomer's apology is met with a mix of concern and judgment from the group present. Deculine assures everyone that responsibility will be taken, dismissing any further issues regarding the situation. Deculine casually comments on the shabby condition of the area, remaining unfazed by imperfections around him. He offers to resolve the issue, his demeanor confident and calm, despite the surrounding chaos. Deculine remarks on those who act improperly, speaking sharply as his words cut through the air. As Deculine exits, the remaining group quietly contemplates his departure, unsure of what's coming next. The room remains tense. As the group discusses the possible consequences of the events that transpired, the group reflects on Deculine's absence, uncertain about the potential fallout from his departure. Deculine enters the classroom, signaling the beginning of his lecture and instantly silencing the room. The students whisper, recalling recent strange events, wondering about their implications as curiosity fills the air. Deculine prepares to begin his lecture on pure elements and magic interference. Setting the topic, Deculine presents magical stones to the class, showcasing their power and importance in magical studies. The students watch in awe as Deculalin demonstrates the magic that can be performed using the stones. Deculalin warns them not to interfere with his magic, giving them a challenge to attempt the impossible. A student, frustrated by Deculalin's challenge, reacts impulsively, ignoring the cautionary words and attempting to act. The student's actions trigger an explosion of energy, resulting in chaos as magic erupts uncontrollably from the stones. As the scene calms, Deculalin speaks again, maintaining control over the situation and offering guidance. Deculalin, calm and collected, explains the intricacies of the magic that was just performed, reinforcing his lesson. He continues by offering more insight into how magical interference works and how to master it. The class listens attentively, absorbing Deculalin's teachings on magical control and how to apply it effectively. The students face challenges, but are determined to prove themselves, especially in the face of Deculalin's expectations. One student expresses doubt but is encouraged by another, showing their resolve to succeed despite the odds. The students brace for another round of intense magical training, pushing their limits as they follow Deculalin's commands. Deculalin ponders the progress of his students and their development as they continue to learn under his guidance. The magic stones shimmer as their powers are fully realized, with the students' efforts becoming more focused. Deculalin reflects on his students' potential, wondering how far they will go under his tutelage and influence. Deculalin receives praise for his steady demeanor, even with the disruptive magic from his students. He expresses mild frustration, unsure of the cause behind the students' interference with his magic. Deculalin performs another magical feat, reinforcing his control over the situation, as magic glows brightly. A student pushes themselves further, showing visible effort as they try to match Deculalin's powerful magic. Deculalin acknowledges the students' progress and praises them for their achievement, calling them first place. However, the student remains focused, not entirely pleased with their ranking. As the competition intensifies, the class continues to struggle with the magic challenge, showing their efforts as they try to catch up. Deculalin questions if anyone else will succeed, sensing the tension in the room as students falter. He notices another student has succeeded, his interest piqued as the competition continues to unfold. The students struggle against Deculalin's overwhelming magic, their bodies shaking with effort. One student, exhausted, pleads for Deculalin's magic to stop, but it continues. Deculalin looks down mockingly, telling them they're pathetic, then orders a break. Ephemera, nearly dying, reflects on how close she came to perishing from Deculalin's power. Despite the danger, Ephemera grins, realizing she had a breakthrough in her abilities. Her classmate, impressed, envies Ephemera's epiphany, wishing he had the same strength. The shocked student questions how Ephemera, ranked lowest, achieved such a drastic improvement. She recalls the rumors of Deculalin teaching Ephemera, wondering if they are true. Suspicious, she wonders if Deculalin deceived her. Growing frustrated with the situation, a mysterious figure stands in the shadows, glaring at Ephemera with intense disdain. The figure swears quietly, determined to put an end to Ephemera's arrogance. In contrast, Ephemera smiles faintly, content with her progress despite growing tensions around her. Deculalin casually asks the class if they managed to stop magical interference during practice. He explains, mana interference, a method to disrupt telekinesis and control other spells. Zone student questions, noting that mana interference requires knowledge of various magical circles. Deculalin explains that mana interference can only be used on magic you understand. He emphasizes that it's not recommended to counter magic unless necessary for success. Deculalin encourages students to practice mana interference, warning them that no pain, no gain. He explains that understanding the central circuit of magic is key to mana interference. The central circuit depends on the magic type, either destructive or supportive, he says. Students are shown a magical circle, with Deculalin describing its formation and properties. Deculalin continues explaining, saying that destructive magic will always create a self-combusting circuit. Support magic, in contrast, forms a circuit that nurtures rather than destroys, he clarifies. With the lesson on circuits finished, Deculalin prepares the students for practical application. 2 hours later, Deculalin declares that time's up, even though more lessons remain. He scolds the students for wasting time but urges them to figure things out. Deculalin dismisses the class with a warning about the upcoming midterms and practicals. As Deculalin leaves, the students are left to contemplate his cryptic words. They feel overwhelmed by the complexity of magic and uncertain of their progress. Ephemera shares her realization with her friend, feeling an epiphany that confuses her. Beck is confronted for starting trouble again, reminding Ephemera about his past actions. Ephemera, questioning Beck, wonders how he managed to go from last to second. Beck dismisses her, claiming he doesn't care about their opinions or their questions. Aine, new character, appearing suspicious, questions Ephemera about her sudden rise in class. She accuses Ephemera of bribing someone to improve her rank, prompting anger. Ephemera is enraged by the accusation and demands an explanation from the other student. The student challenges Ephemera again, mentioning Deculane and his private lessons with her. Ephemera denies the accusations, but the student continues to probe about her sudden improvement. Another student mocks, speculating that Deculane might have gone easy on Ephemera. The argument intensifies as Beck taunts Ephemera, daring her to say something in return. Ephemera clenches her fists, her anger evident, but she holds back from speaking. Her fury intensifies, and she prepares to unleash her magical power on Beck. Ephemera's friend urges her to let the matter go, fearing more punishment for her. Ephemera pauses, her expression cold before responding that mages must remain unshaken. Her friend is left speechless, unsure of how to respond to Ephemera's mindset. Ephemera, thanks, Julie. Admitting she was a bit worked up after the confrontation, Julie reassures her, saying it's okay, and that she's back to normal now. As they start to leave, Beck watches them, wondering what they're up to. Outside, Ephemera ponders her frustration about Beck and her inability to ignore him. She thinks about how she almost lost control, frustrated with Beck's attitude. Her anger boils over as she wonders what to do about Beck next. Walking through the city, Ephemera is still troubled by her encounter with Beck. She wishes she could have controlled herself better, fuming over Beck's behavior. Frustrated, Ephemera wonders what she can do to deal with the situation. A woman approaches her target, asking for a quick talk, her posture serious. Her target looks confused, wondering why she suddenly demands to talk right now. The woman asks if her target is being tutored by Deculant, causing tension. The woman's frustration grows, reacting angrily at her target's dismissive response to her question. She scolds her target, questioning why they seem eager to pick a fight, despite the tension. The woman dismisses the argument, agreeing with her target's response. She explains that Deculane hasn't visited his lab since his father's death. Her target looks puzzled, not knowing the details behind Deculane's actions and past. She mentions Deculane's dependence on his father's genius, suggesting it's a serious issue. She reveals Deculane has secretly returned to the lab, working tirelessly for months. Her target listens, shocked as she talks about Deculane's assistant and new tools. Her target remains skeptical, but considers the implications of Deculane's mysterious actions carefully. The woman reflects on Deculane's recent behavior and the possible meaning behind his actions. Could Deculane be preparing something major? The woman questions his true intentions deeply. The woman walks away, her thoughts consumed by the mystery surrounding Deculane's actions. The students question the practical importance of being in this lecture hall today. One student asks aloud about Deculane's purpose and what he is up to. A figure enters, commanding silence as the lecture officially begins with authority. Deculane announces that today's lesson will focus on practical exercises before the midterms. He raises his hand dramatically, setting the stage for the upcoming demonstration. The air fills with tension as he prepares the students for their demonstration. Deculane reveals the nature of the practical exam, a demonstration of magic combat. The students react with awe at the magnitude of the practical task ahead. The challenge is set: magic combat in front of a live audience for evaluation. Deculane explains the importance of understanding strengths, weaknesses, and how to improve them. He assures students that they will be observed closely without any unnecessary restrictions. A student responds with a request to start the practical, eager to begin. Deculane calls the first student to demonstrate their magic combat skills. The match begins with a clash of fire and wind spells, intense and dynamic. The fight unfolds with both competitors using advanced magic, stunning the crowd. Sylvia triumphs as flames surround her, signaling a powerful victory in the competition. Deculane observes the situation, commenting dryly about another commander being lost in battle. The situation grows tense as Deculane acknowledges that even those with strength falter. After the previous fight, Deculane assures his student that they did a good job. He asks for the next contestant to choose their opponent for the battle. The next student, confident, declares their choice: Ephemera, indicating a fierce upcoming duel. The student, challenging Ephemera, questions her readiness for the upcoming fight. Ephemera's silent response reveals her calm demeanor as she prepares for the battle. The tension rises as the arena becomes the stage for a fierce confrontation. The duel begins as both combatants prepare their magical powers for the fight. A fire and wind clash against each other, creating a massive shockwave. The battle intensifies, with both competitors demonstrating impressive control over their magic. Ephemera unleashes her magic, taking control of the arena and charging ahead. Her opponent looks on in surprise, trying to counteract her overwhelming power. Ephorine's magic surges, leaving her opponent struggling to maintain control under pressure. Ephorine's magic grows powerful as she unleashes a fierce attack on her opponent. Her opponent struggles to counter, feeling the weight of Ephorine's overwhelming force. Ephorine triumphs as her magic overwhelms her opponent, sending them flying across the arena. Deculion watches with a critical eye, commenting on the speed of the battle. Ephorine's opponent is defeated, laying on the ground, as Deculion remarks about the quick end. Ephorine stands victorious, calmly acknowledging her win while Deculion critiques the lack of spectacle. Ephorine requests a rematch, claiming her opponent's strength was too weak for real combat. Deculion dismisses her request, suggesting it's illogical, as Ephorine's magic is too powerful. Despite the critique, Ephorine grins, choosing Deculion as her next challenge. The crowd watches. The chaotic scene unfolds as the professor reacts to a sudden outburst. His disbelief is clear. His frustration grows as he stares at the girl, now regarded as an insane threat. He dismisses her actions, acknowledging the inevitable commotion, remaining composed amid the turmoil. A character sees the unfolding events as a chance to face Deculion in battle. They eagerly anticipate the opportunity, not minding the temporary perception of madness. The resolve deepens as they prepare to seize the moment, fully aware of their desires. Professor Rain consents to the challenge, providing the opportunity for a match. He states the terms clearly, offering a match without restrictions, but with conditions. Deculion's opponent prepares, accepting the challenge with a focused resolve. Both participants take their positions, ready for the intense battle ahead. A surge of energy envelops them, anticipation building before the confrontation. The challenger's heart races, excited for the long-awaited opportunity to engage. The battle begins with intense energy clashing between the two powerful forces. Despite knowing their opponent's power, the challenger continues, determined but cautious. The reckless nature of the match is clear, yet they are compelled to press forward. A tense moment unfolds as a figure stands amidst swirling green magic, preparing to take action. The focus intensifies as the figure's emotions flare, creating a vibrant explosion of energy. The explosion releases fiery red magic, signaling a dramatic shift in the scene as the surroundings react violently. The fiery energy continues to expand, setting the atmosphere alight as the character pushes forward. With a determined expression, the character manipulates the earth element, causing the ground to react violently. The fiery magic collides with the earth, creating a forceful reaction, and the battle escalates further. Observers in the background react with awe and disbelief as the battle rages on. A new character emerges, performing complex magic that distorts the environment around them. Their magic creates a powerful fiery explosion, shocking everyone in the room as they witness the display. The effects of the magic continue to reverberate through the air, catching the attention of all present. The destructive force intensifies, sending shock waves through the surroundings, with magic projecting outward. Tension rises as a new threat appears, causing the room to fill with energy and shifting the battle's momentum. A character stands, seemingly unaffected by the turmoil, yet their focus sharpens as something changes. Magic interference causes an unexpected surge, complicating the character's attempt to activate their power. The disturbance causes a moment of uncertainty, as the character struggles to control their magic, sensing interference in their circuits. The tension rises as the character realizes their magic is now restricted by a powerful force. Shock fills the character's expression as they attempt to understand their sudden inability to use magic. Despite this setback, the character confidently announces their determination to fight using only their body. The character leaps into action, moving swiftly across the battlefield with resolve. An explosion erupts as the character's sudden attack causes the environment to shake violently. The scene shifts to a bystander, who is astounded, witnessing the unexpected power unleashed. The bystander reflects on the combination of fire and earth magic, acknowledging its power. A detailed analysis of the magic usage reveals the character's remarkable control over their elements. The character's magic sense is acknowledged as incredible, as they continue their attack despite the challenges. The observer speculates on the magic user's talent, considering the implications of the bracelet. The focus shifts to a powerful magic artifact, an essential tool in executing complex spells. With a deep thought, the observer reflects on the potential of the magic user, understanding their strength. The character stands tall, contemplating the outcome of their efforts with determination. A somber reflection follows as the character acknowledges that the result is undeniable. Despite the challenges, the character reassures themselves that the outcome wasn't entirely negative. The scene opens with a character reflecting on a moment of recognition and achievement. A group celebrates their success, praising the character for their remarkable performance. As the celebration continues, a ship is spotted in the distance, drawing attention and excitement. Two characters, Leo and Carlos, are spotted arriving, greeting each other warmly after some time apart. The interaction between them is light-hearted, catching up on their lives and experiences. A female character named Ganesha enthusiastically greets a new arrival, Laya, welcoming her with warmth. The harbor bustles with life as the captain is warmly welcomed by everyone. The light around them suddenly intensifies, becoming blinding and overwhelming the surroundings. The brilliant light engulfs everything, signaling an impending shift in their reality, opening their eyes. The character finds themselves in a strange, silent, unfamiliar world. Confusion sets in as the character realizes the familiar world has disappeared entirely. A familiar face emerges, stirring doubts about whether they're dreaming or truly transported. The character notices familiar game elements around them, realizing they are in their game. Yuria introduces herself, confirming the game's world now surrounds the character physically. The character's realization hits hard. They're trapped inside their own game world now. A bustling scene unfolds around Yuria, the greatest adventurer in this strange world. Surviving here means aligning with Yuria, whose skills seem vital for staying alive. The character resolves to join Yuria's team, knowing her leadership is key to survival. The powerful Euclane wand is revealed, a vital artifact created for Deculane's use. The wand's power is undeniable, holding the potential for immense magical control. Deculine acknowledges the wand's importance, understanding it could change the outcome of battles. The Euclane wand has impressive traits, including a natural affinity with the wood. The wand also aids in automatic learning, enhancing the caster's magical efficiency. Its design isn't just beautiful, it is meant to aid the user's magical connection. Deculine examines the wand, realizing its potential and the strength it can provide. A servant enters, informing Deculine that dinner is ready, breaking his focus momentarily. Despite the distraction, Deculine decides to enjoy his meal, maintaining his calm composure. At dinner, Deculine reflects on the vast changes in his current circumstances. His thoughts wander to recent finances, questioning how they have fared in the auction. The meal appears lavish, though Deculine remains focused on larger concerns ahead. The banquet hall is filled with guests, all eagerly bidding on valuable items. Deculine watches from a distance, observing the crowd and noting their actions. The auction proceeds successfully, but Deculine's mind remains focused on more pressing matters. Later, Deculine sits at his desk, surrounded by piles of documents and papers. Frustrated, he surveys the mess, thinking about the upcoming midterms and his preparations. His frustration grows, but he continues working on the exam questions with determination. Deculine examines his previous test questions, realizing their extreme difficulty for debutantes. He arrogantly reflects on his own superiority, thinking these difficult questions are justified. The questions exude Deculine's arrogance, revealing the depths of his pride and ego. Deculine reflects on the original test's difficulty, presuming it stemmed from his arrogance. He realizes the previous Deculine believed in his superiority, making impossible questions for others. However, Deculine vows not to repeat his past mistakes, and to create better questions. As Deculine revises the test questions, he contemplates how to challenge future students. He desires to create questions that spark understanding and foster growth among mages. Deculine knows his actions as a professor will heavily influence the mage's progress. Deculine studies the last question carefully, thinking it requires something unique and different. The question seems oddly intriguing, igniting his curiosity and challenging his previous notions. He realizes that these questions are unlike the ones he previously created. The difficulty is undeniably high, but Deculine feels an intense, irresistible pull from them. These questions ignite incredible interest in Deculine, something far more profound than usual. He infuses his magic into the questions, believing this new method will work. Deculine contemplates the new magical exam, where solving questions unlocks fascinating magical illustrations. The illustration brings elemental magic to life, sparking awe at its intricate design. The questions are perfect for understanding elemental magic, capturing Deculine's fascination and amazement. While observing the perfect question, Deculine feels an unfamiliar jealousy stirring in him. He realizes the beauty of the question, something he himself could never create. Despite his feelings of jealousy, Deculine wonders who created these challenging yet beautiful questions. The mysterious question creator captivates Deculine's attention, sparking curiosity and envy in his heart. Deculine acknowledges the brilliance of the questions, wondering who could surpass his own skills. The woman's identity puzzles him, and he grows increasingly determined to uncover her. The meeting agenda includes discussing the Bloodshroud race, which intrigues Deculin's curiosity further. As Deculin reads the meeting notes, he reflects on the racial discussion's outcome. He's surprised by how strongly the Bloodshroud suppression issue impacted the discussion's result. Adeline, chairwoman of the Magic Tower, is renowned for immense magical power. Despite her power, Adeline is surprisingly easygoing and enjoys gossiping about others' affairs. Her curiosity about worldly matters contrasts with her serious role and hidden background. Adeline's lighthearted nature comes from being half fairy, which grants her immense power. Though she grumbles, she enjoys simple pleasures, like spending time with colleagues today. She listens attentively, intrigued by Deculin's involvement with the heretics and complicated situation. The professors gather for their monthly meeting to discuss Deculin's controversial involvement with heretics. The discussion grows tense as they question Deculin's motives and the true implications. Lady Luina enters, surprising everyone as her return to the Empire raises suspicions. Lady Luina's return is met with skepticism, questioning her motives regarding Deculin's actions. The professors discuss her past achievements in the kingdom, adding more tension to discussions. Adeline considers how Lady Luina's return could affect the politics of the Magic Tower. The meeting concludes, but Adeline reflects on the recent developments and shifting dynamics. Adeline notices Deculin's strange behavior and suspects his involvement with the heretics is significant. She plans to investigate further, knowing the truth will affect the Magic Tower's future. Adeline, amused, imagines what would happen if Luina, Deculin's rival, were present. She chuckles at the thought, imagining how much fun it would be. The title, A Villain's Will to Survive, appears, setting the stage for events. The midterm exam for pure elemental magic begins, taking place in the Magic Tower. Students gather anxiously, unsure of the unusual test, questioning if Deculin's methods are valid. The test's difficulty is revealed, with a 10-day deadline and strict rules in place. Deculin addresses the students, explaining the nature of the open-book midterm exam. He emphasizes the complexity of the test, with each student completing it individually. There's a hint of stress among students, realizing just how hard this exam will be. Deculin states that anyone who scores full marks will receive a letter of recommendation. This motivates students, but they know the test will be exceptionally difficult. Students consider the implication of this recommendation, but Deculin's challenging exams dampen their enthusiasm. The ranks for Archmage are difficult to attain, requiring intense effort and perseverance. Advancing in rank is incredibly challenging, not just based on completing courses alone. Only those passing rigorous promotion exams can rise through the ranks. Nothing is simple. A character laughs menacingly, imagining how satisfying it would be to outsmart Deculin. They confidently state that they will eventually earn the perfect score, determined to succeed. The screen shows day 4 of the exam, signaling the passing of time. Another character struggles with the exam, realizing it's much harder than anticipated. They wonder how difficult the test really is, questioning their ability to succeed. The student remarks on how brilliant the questions are, feeling both frustrated and impressed. The student reflects on the passage of time, growing more exhausted as they progress. Each new question increases in difficulty, pushing their limits further with each answer. A realization dawns. Deculin's test is unlike anything they've ever experienced before. The student begins to see the brilliance in the design of each question. The challenge excites them despite the exhaustion, feeling a sense of accomplishment after each step. They smile, appreciating the beauty in Deculin's method, even though the test is grueling. Frustrated, the student considers stepping outside for some fresh air to clear their mind. They feel their brain aching from the overwhelming pressure, realizing they need a break. Reluctantly, they think it might be best to get some rest and recharge. Sylvia is spotted by Ephorine, who wonders how far Sylvia has progressed. Ephorine looks surprised at Sylvia's presence, realizing she has been working hard. Sylvia asks Ephorine how many questions she has completed in the midterm exam. Ephorine asks, "How many questions have you solved?" With curiosity and impatience. Sylvia admits she is on question number 8, surprising Ephorine with her speed. Ephorine realizes Sylvia has been making impressive progress, and her pace is fast. Sylvia's progress is fast compared to Ephorine, who's stuck at question 7. Ephorine begins to question whether Sylvia is truly making rapid progress or lying. Sylvia suggests Ephorine stop worrying and get back to focusing on finishing the test. Ephorine looks up, questioning what Sylvia is doing outside, and if she's slacking. Sylvia calmly explains she's just taking a break before getting back to studying. Ephorine acknowledges Sylvia's determination, but she realizes she must focus on the test. A noble figure lies in a serene, peaceful sleep, known for their composure. Beneath the calm, a crisis brews, hidden struggles, threaten to surface soon. Sophia Katerina August von Librem appears, warning of an impending monumental change ahead. A majestic structure looms on the final exam day, symbolizing pressure and expectations. Many students drop out, but the determined push on, battling through the challenges. Elite students boast about completing the exam, ignoring the struggles faced by others. The exam concludes with only 2 students attempting the final, most difficult question. Professors eagerly discuss the exam, intrigued by the complexity and the hidden challenges. The remaining students prepare, each determined to outdo the other and succeed. Exhausted, the protagonist reflects on the final question. Feeling the pressure mount steadily, surrounded by empty cups, they know their determination is the key to victory. Despite exhaustion, the protagonist prepares for one final push, ready to solve it. The exam reaches its climax as the final obstacle stands before the students. Professors watch with keen eyes, recognizing the skill and determination of the student. Triumph breaks the tension as the student unlocks the final question's solution confidently. The figure enters the room, greeted by a sense of anticipation and wonder. The door creaks open as a congratulatory voice rings out, affirming the achievement. With a satisfied smile, the figure acknowledges the success, remarking on the accomplishment. Sylvia turns to face the speaker, feeling the weight of the moment's significance. Magical lights fill the air, illuminating the scene, signaling the completion of a challenge. As the mystical energy swirls, the contrast of warmth and coolness brings depth. The scene shifts, the words masterpieces echoing, as a profound achievement is recognized. A dream, once distant, now finds its place in the world through this challenge. The student, eager to make an impact, pushes forward with renewed determination. As the energy swirls, thoughts of family and legacy resurface, pressing forward. Magic, powerful and vibrant, is the gateway to unlocking immense possibilities. A transformation begins. As the boundaries of what was once thought possible fade, the realization sets in, as the journey has only just begun. The final question, and all its implications, are only the start of something. Sylvia faces forward, ready to embrace the challenges ahead, with confidence and grace. The exam's end has arrived, and the hallway fills with a sense of finality. The figure, looking tired but content, hears the call and acknowledges the result. A voice praises their performance, while questions about Sylvia's success rise in the air. Sylvia is dubbed a monster, with others admiring her capabilities and feeling jealousy. The protagonist reflects on how everything else faded away in the pursuit of knowledge. Curiosity and an intense desire to understand what lies beyond fill the protagonist's thoughts. The protagonist longs to answer all questions, eager to complete the task at hand. With determination, they decide to solve the lingering mystery that remains unsolved. Their competitive spirit fuels the drive to tackle the final challenges with a smile. As the sun sets, the protagonist is given words of encouragement. A new journey awaits, walking through the peaceful surroundings. They ponder the marathon exam and its consequences. Fatigue sets in, but they can't shake the feeling that something crucial is missing. A door, marked with mysterious graffiti, looms ahead, signifying the end of this stage. As the protagonist walks forward, they are interrupted by a familiar voice calling out. Confusion and anticipation fill the air as the next chapter unfolds before them. The group gathers together, and Julie excitedly announces their plan to unwind. Sylvia nervously reacts to Julie's announcement, knowing she's about to be teased. Despite the teasing, the group is ready to go out and enjoy the night. Julie cheerfully points out that Effie is the reason for the late night. Effie, embarrassed, tries to defend herself, but Julie's teasing continues unabated. The playful banter continues as the group heads off together, ready for some fun. Several days later, a magical display fills the room, captivating everyone present. Julie admires the scene, amazed by the beauty, urging Efreen to prepare. Efreen, still entranced, assures Julie she'll be ready soon, distracted by the magic. After the exam, Efreen and Julie enjoy a peaceful moment outside, feeling relieved. The exam is over, and Julie looks forward to their upcoming trip together. Efreen asks Julie if she's heard about the news involving Professor Deculine's summoning. Julie explains that Professor Deculine was summoned to the mysterious floating island recently. Efreen listens intently, realizing the floating island holds crucial secrets for magic knowledge. She wonders why Professor Deculine was summoned, and the significance of the island's mystery. The floating island floats high above, a magical wonder known for its knowledge and power. This island stands as a beacon for magic engineers, hosting the world's best minds. It's an independent place where only elite mages are invited to gather and thrive. Professor Deculine prepares for a lecture while reflecting on the floating island's importance. The recent exam question caught the attention of many, further increasing his influence. An unexpected event unfolds. Professor Deculine receives a quest to lecture at the island. Professor Deculane stands before the crowd, introducing his lecture with authority and calm. He mentions the hefty lecture fee of 1 billion won, a surprising detail. The students listen attentively as Deculane introduces himself as a senior-rank professor. Deculane's topic is the midterm exam question at the university, a pivotal subject. He begins explaining the exam question, promising a thorough explanation of pure elements. A student, intrigued, wonders if the professor's exam question is plagiarized or original. Deculane continues smoothly with his lecture, using prior class content to support understanding. The lecture goes well, with students focusing on the systematic explanations of magic. Suddenly, a question arises, and the atmosphere shifts as Deculane prepares to address it. The lecture continues, with Deculane discussing the upcoming 6th question, building tension. The class quiets as a student stands up, raising a hand with curiosity. The student asks, "What do I need to combine with number 6 magic?" Deculane ponders the student's question, preparing to explain the combination of elements. The student seeks to understand how to make number 6 magic more destructive. The class eagerly awaits Deculane's answer, intrigued by the complex magical theory. Deculane notices the chairman's presence and ponders her reason for attending the lecture. He reflects on her curiosity about the exam question's integrity, deciding to entertain her. Deculane prepares to address her, his hand subtly raising his magical energy. The atmosphere shifts as Deculane activates a magical spell, demonstrating his control over magic. The student watches intently, eager to understand how the professor manipulates pure elements. Deculane explains the use of a central circuit, his words guiding the student's curiosity. The class continues, with students asking more questions, intrigued by Deculane's teachings. Deculane answers each question while maintaining his composure, showing his expertise effortlessly. Adeline's questions persist, but Deculane skillfully handles them, his responses showcasing his authority. With only 10 minutes remaining, Deculane prepares to move on to the last question. He decides to address one final question, sensing the growing tension in the room. Deculane faces the student who asks about the 8th question. His interest piqued. Luna stands up, clearly questioning the authenticity of the exam's 8th question. Deculane listens intently, intrigued by Luna's challenge to the question's origin and integrity. Luna's inquiry sparks murmurs in the crowd, leaving the room filled with speculation. Deculane's magical display amazes the students, who marvel at the beauty of the magic. Deculane explains that he created this on the spot, different from the previous question. He turns to Luna, asking if his answer satisfies her question about magic. The event quest notification appears, signaling that Deculane has completed the task successfully. Deculane walks away, reflecting on how he handled the day's lecture and questions. He senses potential trouble ahead as the day ends, knowing something will happen soon. Deculane walks alone, wondering who the mysterious woman ahead of him could be. He looks at the woman's face, recognizing her but not understanding why she's familiar. As he ponders, he notices the woman's disgusted expression, wondering what's wrong. Deculane stands in the grand hall, recognizing Charlotte, remembering their shared university days together. Charlotte reacts with surprise, questioning their closeness, and the informal exchange between them. She asks about Princess Maho's well-being, triggering a guarded response from Deculane. Deculane dismisses any personal attachment to Charlotte, focusing solely on Princess Maho's situation. He grows more focused on the political landscape, determined to protect Princess Maho. His resolve strengthens. Maho's safety takes precedence, leaving no room for emotional distractions. The Emperor's impending death marks a crucial turning point in the Empire's political game. The death of Emperor Krabame sets off power struggles that will shake the Empire. Maho's importance grows in Deculane's mind as her fate intertwines with political power. Deculane contemplates the Empire's vastness, knowing Maho's position makes her a target soon. Maho hides behind her studies, but danger surrounds her as the Emperor nears death. When the Emperor dies, Maho will be vulnerable, and Deculane plans her protection. Deculane remains calm, realizing he must manipulate those around him to secure his future. Charlotte presses Deculane, pointing out his ability to manipulate others, testing his resolve. Deculane sees himself as Maho's lifeline, knowing sacrifices must be made for survival. Deculane looks at the man with frustration, refusing to ask for help from him. The man dismisses Deculane's objection, acknowledging there's no time left to waste. Deculane reluctantly agrees, telling the man to do as he wishes, despite objections. Charlotte looks concerned, noticing the stress on Deculane's face as she calls him out. She remarks that he doesn't look well, her voice tinged with worry and care. Deculane, weary and tired, responds flatly with a single word: "Princess." Charlotte's expression shifts as she moves toward Deculine, sensing the weight of the situation. Her voice shakes slightly as she explains the urgency, mentioning the threats from his brothers. She nervously admits that the situation regarding the throne is beyond their control now. Deculine tries to reassure Charlotte, telling her not to worry about the Empire's throne. Charlotte looks anxious, unsure about how they will proceed with so many dangers approaching. Deculine understands her fear but remains focused, acknowledging the imminent danger and their plans. Charlotte confesses she fled to the Empire, using her studies as a cover for safety. She expresses concern that the new emperor won't let her go, urging them to leave. With a sigh, Deculine accepts the situation, nodding at Charlotte's determination to act. Deculine accepts the proposal reluctantly, agreeing to use his funds to hire mercenaries. Figure suddenly appears at the window, prompting a defensive reaction from Deculine. Simonon outside demands to know their identity, creating tension as danger looms closer. Deculine stands frozen, realizing the immediate threat as the stranger outside retreats quickly. Charlotte notices the growing danger and urgently thinks about their next course of action. With anxiety creeping in, Charlotte reflects on the escalating situation and the urgency of help. Charlotte grimaces, acknowledging that the situation is already becoming increasingly dangerous for everyone. She admits that without external help, the threat they face will become insurmountable soon. The urgency escalates, and both characters prepare for the worst while seeking an escape plan. The scene shifts to a quiet moment, as a character reads intently in a room. A familiar voice interrupts the reading, playfully commenting on how much the person reads. The voice reveals itself to be from a sibling, with playful teasing about the reading habits. The conversation grows more serious, touching on events at the floating island and paid lectures. The sibling Uriel is warned not to get too comfortable with the situation. A change in atmosphere occurs as the conversation shifts to official matters and responsibilities. Deculine's response is calm as he holds a communication crystal, ready to speak. He activates the crystal, signaling a call, awaiting the response with quiet composure. The crystal hums as the voice calls out, requesting Deculine's help urgently. Charlotte anxiously looks at Deculine, realizing their time is running out as danger looms. Deculine agrees, his expression unwavering as he confirms their need to leave immediately. He calmly orders, "Help me, Deculine," signaling his determination to take charge of the situation. The tension rises as Deculine reveals a map, showing a dangerous route ahead. Charlotte watches closely, concerned, as Deculine points to a dangerous path called Crevice Canyon. Charlotte reacts with shock, realizing the treacherous nature of this route, but understanding the necessity. Deculine remains calm, asserting that the route through Crevice Canyon is their only option. Charlotte hesitates, concerned about the demonic energy present, but Deculine reassures her. With confidence, Deculine urges Charlotte to trust him, assuring her they will survive. The Crevice Canyon, known for demons and rugged terrain, makes travel dangerous for all. Traveling through the Crevice Canyon will quickly get them to the Yulren Republic. The glowing orb symbolizes the strategic advantage of the location, despite demon threats. A new character assures that they'll personally guide the protagonist through the danger. The protagonist asks why they're helping, questioning the true reasons for their involvement. With a sly grin, the protagonist admits their political interest and superior intelligence. The protagonist clarifies their intent, revealing that their involvement comes with personal advantages. The other character hesitates but agrees to the deal, though unsure of trust. The deal is confirmed, leaving tension in the air as uncertainty grows. 3 days later, they arrive in Hydacane, the capital, marveling at its beauty. Hydacane, known for its food and activities, hides deeper secrets beneath its charm. Though beautiful, Hydacane's proximity to the Crevice Canyon raises concerns for the protagonist. The characters discuss Hydacane's strategic location, noting its distance from the Crevice Canyon. The protagonist plans to take advantage of the situation, ready to leave if needed. The conversation hints at hidden motives, suggesting a deeper plot lurking in the background. As a magic tower professor and the Lord of Hydacane, Deculine gives a tour. He mentions that these trips need to be flexible and will not interfere. However, Deculine warns if they dirty the hotel, they won't laugh at the tower. Deculine reveals his investment in Hydacane, intending to turn it into an outpost. He speaks of laying the foundation to strengthen Hydacane's strategic value in the future. This revelation leaves the group wondering about the hidden objectives behind this plan. The students are asked about their skills, and the comparison with other towers begins. A suggestion to raise a mage's pay is made, followed by a shocking comment. The idea of firing a mage for such a simple reason stuns the group. Later, the group enjoys a peaceful night by a campfire. Relaxing under the stars, After a day full of activities, the group gathers around the warm fire. Suddenly, the sky is illuminated with fireworks, signaling the beginning of the next event. Sylvia performs her firework magic flawlessly, earning perfect scores for her incredible display. The fireworks are breathtaking, impressing everyone, earning 10 points for the perfect execution. Despite the assignment, the students laugh at the unexpected nature of their firework challenge. The group watches as the fireworks show ends, discussing the quality of the display. Julie's work is rated lower, earning only 4 points, much to her frustration. Despite this, she is reassured that her final effort still earned a respectable 10. Sylvia's fireworks display is praised for balancing destructive and delicate magic with perfection. The judges award her a perfect 10 points for the beauty and precision. Her impressive work sparks further questions about how the judging system really works. As the night deepens, the protagonists' thoughts shift toward their next actions and plans. They wonder whether Charlotte is safe, considering the journey's unpredictable nature and dangers. Deculenson decides it's time to leave, ensuring that everything will continue as planned. Ephorine appears suddenly, raising concerns about her late-night presence in the area. The protagonist asks if this visit is due to some debt owed to her. Ephorine insists on knowing why the protagonist is involved, particularly about past events. The tension rises as Ephorine demands answers, questioning the motives behind the actions. Despite the questions, Deculen remains distant, telling her to figure things out herself. As Ephorine calls out, her anger ignites, promising to become more powerful than him. Ephorine's intentions to become Deculen's subordinate are questioned, and uncertainty looms over her decision. There's confusion about what exactly happened between Deculen and Ephorine's father, raising suspicions. The protagonist wonders what they'll do if Ephorine's father committed an unforgivable action. Deculen receives a report about Charlotte's party's arrival and questions if they should be contacted. The scene shifts to a figure approaching Deculen, and the party seems weary. A figure acknowledges Deculen's hard work and congratulates him for making it this far. Beneath the moonlit cliff, Deculen confronts Charlotte's exhausted escort group cautiously. With composed authority, Deculen introduces himself as Imperial Magic Tower Professor. Observing injuries and torn garments, he evaluates their dangerous journey. An adventure team letter is handed to Deculen silently, carefully reading its contents. His expression turns cold immediately. He judges the situation disgraceful and beyond acceptable limits. Charlotte notices Deculen's displeasure as departure preparations begin quietly. Under bright moonlight, the group advances through rugged terrain. Charlotte inquires about the letter's troubling content seriously. The report confirms 3 assassins and Dianantes pursuing them relentlessly. Shock spreads when Dianantes are identified as demonic phantoms. These entities resist physical strikes and conventional magic attacks. Charlotte realizes this threat exceeds ordinary assassin pursuits. Explanation reveals forbidden contracts using demon summoning magic rituals. Deculen proceeds decisively, anticipating intensified pursuit from dark mages. Charlotte recalls Eucline bloodline, capable of exterminating demons efficiently. Deculen confirms his lineage strengthens when confronting concentrated demonic energy. He identifies Crevice Canyon as the demon's lair ahead. Assessing mana quality rank 4, Deculen measures his advantage carefully. He calculates that Dianantes can be eliminated without difficulty. Historical ranks of mana users reinforce his confidence. Charlotte urges faster movement as tension builds. Deculen warns rushing risks, demonic energy poisoning. The masked escort remains silent, observing Charlotte thoughtfully. Charlotte reassures everyone, hiding her own anxiety. The escort reflects on her warmth and leadership. He silently vows to protect Charlotte at any cost. A sudden scream interrupts as shadows gather nearby. A colony of bats erupts from darkness violently. The escort steadies himself, accepting confrontation inevitable. Deculen steps forward, declaring he will handle the threat alone. Blue mana surges around him, forming sharp spiraling currents. A towering vortex descends, crushing the incoming bats instantly. Blades of compressed mana slice through remaining creatures midair. Dark fragments scatter as the colony collapses completely. The canyon falls silent beneath fading blue radiance. Charlotte and escorts watch, astonished by his overwhelming precision. Suddenly, another monster lunges from the shadows ferociously. Deculen counters effortlessly, shattering it with concentrated force. He warns unseen enemies, abandoning any pretense of restraint. A chilling declaration echoes, promising brutal consequences for pursuit. The escorts tense as ominous presences gather nearby. A masked assassin emerges, mocking Deculen's sharpened instincts. Killing intent saturates the canyon as figures surround them. Steel flashes suddenly signaling the beginning of direct confrontation. Within the crystal cavern, Charlotte guards the princess as masked enemies surround them cautiously. Deculin stands composed behind them, analyzing the situation without visible hesitation. Suspicious movement deeper inside the cave draws Deculin's sharp attention immediately. Blue magic erupts from Deculin, blasting forward and fracturing stone violently. A masked attacker is struck directly, collapsing under overwhelming magical force. Despite chaos spreading rapidly, Deculin calmly orders Charlotte to retreat. Charlotte urgently points upward as more hostile figures gather above. A massive shadow rises slowly from a dark fissure beneath. The Daznoon fully emerges, radiating terrifying purple energy across cavern. Ignoring danger, Deculin commands the princess to continue escaping immediately. He declares intention to eliminate the monstrous Daznoon alone. Charlotte hesitates silently, conflicted by Deculin's unwavering determination. Deculin reassures Charlotte about supporting Eucline after Princess ascends. Sharp crystal constructs rise, forming protective barriers along escape route. With final resolve, Deculin launches forward toward the Daznoon. Masked pursuers rush through the cavern, chasing Charlotte and the princess relentlessly. Behind them, the Daznoon laughs within darkness, mocking Deculin's arrogance openly. Facing the towering shadow, Deculin stands alone, completely unshaken. The Daznoon declares itself superior, empowered by corrupted mana. Observing carefully, Deculin analyzes its structure and magical imbalance. He concludes overwhelming force will shatter the creature's core. A massive crystal descends, violently crushing toward the Daznoon. Purple energy surges upward, resisting the falling construct. Deculin narrows his eyes, refusing premature victory assumptions. The Daznoon counterattacks, striking Deculin with distorted power. Observers panic, believing his body shattered from impact. Composed as ever, Deculin denies the monster's survival. Raising one arm, he summons multiple luminous crystal spears. The sharpened constructs rotate rapidly, encircling the Daznoon. With precise control, Deculin commands simultaneous descent, piercing everything. Crystal spears descend brilliantly, piercing the Daznoon with concentrated force. The monster's body fractures violently under overwhelming magical pressure. Its massive form collapses, scattering corrupted energy across cavern walls. After escaping, Charlotte supports Maho as dawn light emerges softly. Gland Urine Republic's minister and Maho's great-uncle arrives anxiously. Relief spreads when he confirms Maho returned safely from danger. Charlotte introduces herself formally. While explaining others assisted their escape, she requests permission to wait for remaining allies nearby. The minister agrees, allowing them to remain temporarily. Under a fading sunset, Charlotte quietly worries about Deculin's condition. Memories of his solitary stand linger heavily in her thoughts. Despite concern, she maintains composure before the princess. At the city gates, Charlotte and Maho suddenly halt. Deculin approaches calmly, clothes stained from fierce battle. Seeing him alive, relief overwhelms them as evening settles. At sunset, Deculin announces departure, ignoring exhaustion of Sylvia and Ephorine. Earlier battle resurfaces, where Deculin shielded princess and students from danger. Sylvia realizes Deculin intentionally risked himself to guarantee their safe escape. Overwhelmed emotions surge as Sylvia urgently calls out Deculin's name, despite pride. She expresses gratitude for his sacrifice during battle. Calmly, Deculin evaluates them, concluding survival proves his lesson effective. Without lingering, Deculin walks along forest path beneath fading sunlight. Sylvia promises repayment, while Ephorine offers sincere thanks behind him. A brief glance acknowledges them before he continues forward silently. System notification appears, granting quest rewards for successful intervention. Night falls as Charlotte arrives at Minister Estate, seeking audience. Inside Grand Office, tension builds before their confidential discussion begins. Charlotte sits opposite Deculin, carefully observing his composed expression. Suspicion lingers as she questions whether hidden motives guide him. Resolutely, Charlotte asks him listen fully until conversation concludes. The minister informs Charlotte that the Grand Duke supports Princess Pili's succession. Charlotte listens silently, processing implications behind sudden political endorsement carefully. Confusion lingers as she questions whether Pili will become Grand Duchess. The minister explains the Grand Duke previously entrusted matters to grandson. He emphasizes confidentiality, limiting knowledge to himself and Charlotte alone. Shock spreads across Charlotte's face as possibilities rapidly unfold. Charlotte recalls Pili lacking influence during earlier succession conflicts. Now Pili unexpectedly rises as heir entrusted with dukedom authority. Doubt deepens as Charlotte wonders who else knows truth. The minister denies other involvement, claiming direct confirmation from Grand Duke. Charlotte proposes alliance, suggesting urine can benefit from Pili's strength. Subtle warning implies hesitation would waste valuable political opportunity. Latter, Charlotte reflects privately, analyzing minister's calculated statements carefully. Suspicion forms that Deculane predicted succession outcome before announcement. Meanwhile, Deculane walks alone at sunset, expression unreadable and composed. Before dawn, Charlotte worries whether Deculane returned safely to mansion. Inside his chamber, Deculane awakens briefly, noting sunrise has not arrived. He realizes Iron Man trait erased exhaustion after short rest. Despite unnatural recovery, his refreshed body forces him awake again. Deculane casually prepares for telekinesis training within dim bedroom. Soon afterward, he begins intense physical drills without hesitation. He studies papers, organizes plans, and works tirelessly through night. Danger surrounding Academy strengthens his resolve to improve constantly. Routine habits and competitive mindset define his disciplined lifestyle. Meanwhile, a woman reflects regretfully about acting sooner before separation. She leaves quietly, while a confused man watches helplessly. Thoughts linger that improved condition might have prevented departure. Deculane recognizes remaining awake 22 hours strains his existence. Trapped within game mechanics, he endures unnatural schedule daily. Standing before tall window, he contemplates consequences silently. Inside bustling station, Magic Train prepares departure as families gather nearby. Leah hides with companions, noticing Academy mages surrounding platform. Suspicion rises when she questions why they avoid main crowd. From distance, Deculane stands calmly among students and citizens. Leah reminds herself recent changes do not alter her resolve. Yet embarrassment surfaces as she secretly admires his appearance. Overwhelmed by crowding, Leah decides to leave narrow alley quickly. Suddenly Deculane notices her movement and calls her name. Their eyes meet, surprise evident between both instantly. Realization strikes Leah as she understands they have been caught. Confusion spreads among companions as tension thickens atmosphere. Charlotte recognizes Deculane's presence and speaks his name softly. Unexpected memories of past life surface vividly inside Leah's mind. Images of Kim Woojin and intimate moments flash abruptly. Disturbed by intrusion, she questions why forgotten feelings return. Deculane adjusts his gloves calmly, expression distant and unreadable. Leah remembers Kim Woojin, insisting Deculane is only fictional character. Despite reasoning, longing persists as she watches him silently. Deculane studies her carefully, sensing familiarity within her presence. A smiling woman from his memories overlaps briefly with Leah's face. Standing across Grand Staircase Hall, both remain separated by silence. Inside the Academy Hall, Deculane calmly faces Uriel beneath tall windows. Uriel meets his gaze, startled briefly by his intense composure. Composure returns to Deculane as he suppresses unnecessary distracting thoughts. Uriel walks away, attempting to steady her turbulent emotions. Nearby students observe Deculane passing with restrained curiosity. A red-haired girl watches secretly, doubting the rumors surrounding him. Several days later, a black carriage moves through capital streets. Inside, Uriel trembles while sitting beside composed Deculane. He advises calm behavior during the Emperor's upcoming coronation ceremony. Uriel presents documents, detailing her calculated political predictions. The report recalls the former Emperor's death 12 days earlier. It anticipates rapid territorial changes following the crowning. Deculane considers her analysis carefully, acknowledging its strategic value. Their carriage arrives near the grand coronation grounds. House Eucline advances forward, before assembled nobles and knights. At the ceremony grounds, Deculane walks forward while Uriel follows behind. His attention shifts as he notices a familiar silver-haired noblewoman nearby. The silver-haired woman lowers her gaze, unable to hide unease. Deculane observes quietly, suspecting her distress involves Varen again. Without further reaction, he and Uriel proceed between towering ceremonial pillars. Ahead, a magnificent carriage arrives upon the red carpet. Nobles immediately kneel, lowering their heads as the Emperor approaches. Golden heels step gracefully onto the carpet before them. A crimson robe trails behind the new ruler's imposing figure. Within the radiant hall, the crowned figure advances toward the throne. In front of assembled officials, the crown is carefully presented. The jewel-studded crown settles upon the Emperor's red hair. Drums resound loudly as citizens cheer outside the palace. Sofian Yekatera August von Gebrain ascends the throne formally. From the side, Deculane notices the newly crowned emperor yawning. Narration describes Emperor Sofian as unpredictable and dangerously perceptive ruler. Deculane senses her gaze lingering directly upon him. Unease rises as he questions her sudden interest. He bows respectfully, masking tension beneath controlled composure. Sofian surveys kneeling nobles while observing Deculine carefully. A court attendant insists her stare targets him. Deculine denies. Nothing. Recognizing her unwavering attention, red aura intensifies subtly around Sofian's throne. She comments inwardly about the ceremony's dull atmosphere. Karen, Sofian's guard, stands silently beside the throne. Sofian admits one noble unexpectedly captured her interest. She recalls hearing about a controversial recent creation. Smiling faintly, Sofian reveals she met its creator. She concludes, Deculine appeared unusually aware of her. Kneeling below, Deculine maintains calm despite her scrutiny. Sofian laughs softly, amused by Deculine's unusual presence before her. She rises from the throne, declaring intention to perform imperial duties. Her thoughts shift toward reforming the empire's academic classes. Later, Deculine walks through academy corridors with a young assistant. He remarks internally that students remain foolish despite term beginning. Crowds gather unexpectedly outside the faculty office entrance. Inside the grand hall, imperial knights stand before palace crest. Deculine senses every imperial family member staring directly at him. A royal knight presents a sealed letter from palace formally. The announcement declares opportunity to share magic with Emperor. Deculine is named candidate to demonstrate palace-created magical question. Kneeling silently, he realizes the Emperor personally selected him. Within the Empire, a grand tradition gathers knights, mages, scholars. Professor Deculine stands selected among nationally recognized intellectual authorities present. Imperial attention settles firmly upon him inside Palace Hall. Kneeling formally, Deculine evaluates political risks behind challenge carefully. Princess Sophine observes silently from elevated throne with interest. Acceptance follows swiftly as official problem document passes forward. George introduces intricate magical equation designed for senior mages. Unusual rune formations reveal structural weakness within complex script. Blue mana surges outward as calculation reaches completion instantly. Magical projection manifests, announcing expected day-long solving timeframe publicly. Confirmation spreads quickly that Deculine already solved everything. Composure remains steady while he credits ongoing rune research. Ancient language within problem appears strangely familiar to Deculine. Past memories of rune design clarify effortless interpretation. Confidence strengthens as survival strategy advances another step forward. Knight Examiner confirms Deculine successfully passed Imperial Instructional Examination today. Court officials express gratitude. While recording unprecedented completion time publicly, murmurs spread rapidly as nobles question astonishing 5-minute solution. Red-haired Sofian listens quietly, weighing arguments within throne chamber. Several officials, object insisting rumors surrounding Deculine remain troubling. Despite objections, results clearly demonstrate superior magical capability displayed. Sofian rejects gossip, declaring personal judgment outweighs circulating rumors. She appoints Deculine official instructional mage without hesitation publicly. After brief consideration, discussion shifts toward vacant knight captaincy. Medical leave confirms current captain unavailable for immediate duties. Sofian smiles subtly, proposing unexpected suitable replacement candidate. She orders Karen execute confidential directive without further explanation. At Freeheim training grounds, Julie practices relentlessly under sunlight. Observers discuss missing boy investigation affecting Captain Julie morale. A messenger rushes urgently toward Julie carrying Imperial summons. Julie von Frieden receives Imperial summons with stunned expression. Announcement declares her candidate for Emperor's swordsmanship instructor position. Determination flashes brightly as she accepts examination challenge immediately. Snowy winds accompany Julie traveling toward designated gathering lodge. Inside, former academy seniors await beside warm fireplace. Quietly, conversation begins cautiously as they acknowledge shared examination purpose. Gwen expresses uncertainty yet promises serious preparation efforts. Raffle states everyone present seeks identical imperial opportunity. Heavy silence settles while tension thickens among candidates. Empty examiner chair raises questions about delayed arrival. Speculation spreads regarding captain's injury and sudden replacement. Door handle turns slowly, drawing everyone's attention. Deculine enters elegantly, revealing appointment as examination overseer. Shock overtakes Julie as his presence contradicts expectations. He calmly announces commencement of special evaluation. Julie struggles processing Deculine's unexpected authority here. Suspicion grows regarding his motives behind intervention. Unspoken question lingers about Deculine's true objective.